I call to order the October 5th, 2020 business meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone to please silence your cell phones. Ms. Bates, please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Present.
Ms. Bolton?
Present.
Mrs. Bowers?
Here.
Mr. Lindy?
Here.
Mr. Messer?
Present.
Mr. Morosky?
Here.
President Jones?
Here. Thank you. Members of the public who wish to be heard during the board meeting must raise their hand to speak during the first 10 minutes after the start of the meeting. Please do so now. Individuals who raise their hands after the first 10 minutes of the meeting will not be recognized to speak during this meeting. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special public meeting September 23rd, 2020, and the special meeting September 28th, 2020.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Minutes are approved. Okay. We don't have any committee reports to present this evening, so we'll move right into our presentations. Ms. Mitchell, please introduce this evening's first presentation.
Absolutely, gladly. So this is a very exciting presentation. So tonight we are honoring Evanston School, a Blue Ribbon Honor School. Evanston is among only 16 out of the state of Ohio to receive this recognition. They are among 367 nationwide. So this is a huge, huge honor. And so we're very excited to be able to welcome the principal and her team from Evanston School.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
I am Stacy Hill Simmons, and I'm the principal at Evanston Academy. I am honored to be here. Before we introduce you guys to the Evanston experience, I just want to take a second, give a little background information, give you a little context of who we are as a school. Evanston Academy is on Fairfax Avenue, a street we share with AWL. We are 3 minutes away from Ronan Hills High School and about 5 to 7 minutes away from Xavier University. We're a small school. Pre-COVID, we serviced between 300 and 325 students, plus 16 to 18 preschoolers, in addition to 4 units of students with autism. So when I started my journey, I really wanted to gift the community with an amazing schoolhouse with high quality instruction that will rival any magnet school, any private school, or any elementary school in the suburb. I wanted to staff that school with an amazing staff, provide high quality, best products for the students so they could do a great job once they left us. Evanston Academy in the last 10 years has consistently shown up solidly academically. However, it's not me. When invited to come out this evening, I asked my team leaders to join us because I want you guys to understand I am merely a conduit through which the work travels. I come up with the bright ideas, I push the direction and the pace. I stay in everybody's way and get on their nerves. They are the folks who make the magic happen. I take my direction from my superintendent and her team. These folks take their direction from me, and they deliver every time in excellence. I am proud to call them team. I am proud of the work that happens at Evanston Academy. So I would be remiss if I didn't take some time this evening and introduce them individually. I am the principal, but they are the folks who make the magic happen. So if you guys individually could step up so folks can see you once I tell everybody who you are. Meredith Turner is first. Miss Meredith Turner is the primary teacher. Primary at Evanston Academy is pre-K through 2. Mrs. Turner is a fairly new leader of teachers. She sat in the role about 3-4 years. Mrs. Turner is a 20-year Cincinnati public school teacher. Mrs. Railway is a long-time teacher leader in our district. She has oscillated between being a leader of teachers in building and district-wide support. She is a 3rd, 4th team leader. She is a 27-year Cincinnati public school teacher. 5, 6 team leader is Miss Deidre Simpson. Miss Simpson, just as Miss Railway, has oscillated between school-based leadership and district leadership. Mrs. Simpson is a 28-year Cincinnati public school teacher. My Lone Ranger is Kevin Williams. Mr. Kevin Williams is a acquired talent from another organization outside of Cincinnati Public Schools. Mr. Williams is the fine arts team leader. His role is really different just because of the makeup of our school. Mr. Williams leads music, art, gym, PE, technology, as well as Vision 2020 and our psychologist. However, what makes his role unique at Evanston, if you are the music teacher, your side job is you are a math teacher on the back end. Mr. Crook, who is our PE teacher, his side job is he's an ELA teacher on the back end. Through this year, Mr. Crook has become one of the finest math administrators in the district because of how we structure. So everybody at Evanston is connected to the work. Our secretaries are tutors. Our commitment is to high academic achievement for every student in every seat. We want to take every student where they are and give them our best, regardless of where they are. So our last but not least is Mrs. Childs. Mrs. Childs is our school-wide lead teacher. She and I work from a place of shared leadership as it relates to instruction. We work together to build the instructional plan at Evanston Academy, to chart the direction instructionally. It's the duality of thought under the shared leadership umbrella that really can be beautiful for a schoolhouse. Mrs. Childs is a 30-year Cincinnati public school teacher. Mrs. Childs has only serviced in Evanston. And a fun fact about Mrs. Childs is I have been her principal for 19 years. They're amazing. And it's the talent acquisition part of the work that is key to creating a fantastic school experience for kids. I take my direction from my boss, they take their direction from me, and they deliver it in excellence every time. I stand here this evening in solidarity with the Evanston team leaders, not as their principal, but as a contributor to the work and a proud member of the Evanston school family.
All right, hi, as she said, I'm Tanya Relier. I think we're still looking for slides, but I can do my piece without them. We did have some data to show you. The data was a snapshot of 3 years of mathematics and language arts test scores broken down by subgroup. And one thing, if we get the slides up, you can notice from that is that you can see growth in subgroups from year to year. You can also see that our students' percent proficient is always at or above the Ohio State average, sometimes well above. So how did we get there? How did we get to a place like that? Well, we constantly collect data and use it to plan strategically. We're always doing that. We collect data from a variety of sources. We collect data from student assessments. Those are district-wide, those are teacher-created. We do routine classroom walkthroughs. Those are led by team leaders, and team leaders provide feedback to individual teachers from those walkthroughs. We monitor our interventions that we put in place very closely. Those interventions are monitored by individual staff members that are in charge of those interventions. And of course, Mrs. Hill-Simmons does her rounds, and team leaders do informal classroom observations. So it's a real partnership. We use that data to figure out at any given time what students know and are able to do, but also it gives us a picture of the instruction that is occurring in every single classroom. So we can use that data to plan and create student groupings, to plan different interventions as needed. And we do that during a variety of meetings. We have weekly meetings. And as Mrs. Hill-Simmons mentioned, our teams are pre-K to 2, grades 3 and 4, grades 5 and 6, and our fine arts team. We have weekly administrative meetings. And during those administrative meetings, those are attended by the principal, the school-wide lead teacher, by everybody on the team, intervention specialists, reading specialists. Anyone who touches instruction on that team goes to those meetings weekly. And we dig into data at those meetings every single week. We do use our bi-weekly staff meetings creatively. We use staff meetings for professional development in response to teachers' needs. So collecting all this data gives us a picture of what teachers need and what they need to know, and we use staff meetings to provide that. We also use staff meetings to have strategic planning sessions as well. So then based on our discussions and our analysis of this data, we create these intervention plans for groups of students and for individual students. And then we allocate and reallocate resources like space, like staff, like materials, and we determine where the additional support should go. And that could be academic support. That could also just be support for encouraging a student's additional effort or improved attendance. There's all kinds of support that are needed. And then we also deploy we deploy the support of team leaders. There's the data I was talking about. All right, Ms. Turner.
This is a crazy year with this pandemic, so this is just another kind of a weird start. So here's Evanston County. Our mantra is prepare students for life, even in a pandemic. Even your slides are late coming on. And so we're going to talk about academic progress for all students, with all being that operative word. Rigorous instruction with a focus on early literacy. So preparing students is having a solid plan, and we do that in several different ways. Okay, here we go. One-on-one instruction, you're teaching. Student-led activity. We believe in learning, and it takes place everywhere. So there's no one-size-fits-all. We believe in taking a deep dive into rigorous problem and that learning systems is creative and meaningful life. We have a direct emphasis on daily practice of foundational skills, and it is really daily. So this slide shows captures the kindergarten writing tables, teaching a component of our daily curriculum, writer workshops. We feature a theme for every wisdom, and we expand upon it to include opinion writing, narratives, compare and contrast, and informational reports. Teachers offer different levels of scaffolding and multiple ways to build mastery. We feature groupings, and students are included in role setting and data talk, even skills. And teachers have different approaches, but we all have the same goal in mind, rich instruction. And at Evanston, we recognize our parents as our students' first teachers. Parents are a big part of our teaching, especially in this pandemic. Because parent involvement sessions, we can build empathy for learning from school to home. And the bottom line is that families and students work with us on this academic journey. We recognize the power of early literacy and combine the academic growth. Thank you.
Hello, at Evanston Academy, we take pride in our community engagement and extracurricular activity. Our partners provide enrichment that builds excellence within the school. We have a host of partners. Our main contributors are GE, Southern, Baker University, and our Smithsonian Institute, where we had an opportunity to do live interactive video conferencing. Our extracurricular activities extend the learning beyond the classroom. We provide ourselves on making sure that we enrich the student's mind and build footprints that lead to their future. The type of extracurricular activities, we have our Jet's Mind, which features our yoga and our meditation. We have our handicrafts, our cooking class that builds life skills. Our study tables that provide tutorials for our students, and that's in conjunction with our paras. We have a 3D club and a robotics team. Our fine arts and extracurricular activities includes parents and community people who come in and work with our students. Here you see our students are doing the chess program, and here we had our music teacher do a GoFundMe for ukuleles, which he taught the children how to play those. And here we have lots of experiences and presentations that stretches the children's communication skills, and everybody participates in them. Picture of our handicrafts and cooking class that builds life skills. And our robotics team, which we're preparing for a competition. Evanston's robotics team has competed citywide for the past 8 years and have won 42 trophies and awards. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
I am going to talk to you about one of the characteristics that's very special about Evanston Academy staff, and it is that we are a problem-solving community. Number one, we have a problem-solving matrix. Go ahead. You can see that. We take our barriers, and we discuss in teams, whether grade level teams or administrative teams. We discuss our barriers in those team settings, and we just determine the best decision for student outcome. Here, you see we have engaged learning, and one of our mottos is all hands on deck. As a staff member of Evanston Academy, it's the expectation, as Principal Hill Simmons said, that what you do, but you do more. You're hired for what you do, but everybody teaches math, everybody teaches ELA, everybody teaches social studies and technology. We are all hands on deck. There's a couple pictures right here of our gym teacher implementing the writing component in physical education. I believe it was a playbook they were doing, and they present in there as well. I think that's a picture of me engaged in Ms. Child's class. It is all hands on deck. That includes our volunteers, our partners, GE, Western Southern. They all come in and are hands-on with the academics. So if I was to compare it to a famous movie called Drumline, we are one band, one sound.
Greetings.
Hello.
Last but not necessarily least, school-wide interventions. We engage in numerous interventions. You've heard some, and I'll speak on about 3 of them. First of all, we base our best practices on early interventions and direct, explicit, multisensory instruction. These are both preventative and prescriptive for us, and we found that works best for our children. It is hard to breathe in this and talk. So in our professional development, these are some of the things that we deal with on an annual basis. We use largely our staff meetings to provide additional support to our students as well as our staff based on staff and student needs. As you can see, Orton, technology interventions, students with disabilities, backward mapping, and math. Writing has been a focus for us for about the past 3 years, really in depth, teaching teachers how to teach writing to students, a structured approach. And then we do annually with the writing as a review. As you can see here, pre-K, first grade, they start labeling, they start writing descriptive words, they start writing sentences, 1 or more sentences remaining on a topic. As we progress on, and even our little babies with autism, our students with autism are writing. At first grade, you begin to see the structured writing approach emerge, and we use a format of the painted essay where we've scaffolded and support it and grow it as the children move on from grade level to grade level. By second grade, the children are writing from day 1 and every day afterwards a 4-paragraph essay. Every day. Third grade, they build on that and they begin to embellish with the transitions, citing evidence, and so forth. Grades 4 and up continue on building and elaborating on the topics, the introduction, and adding sufficient details and arguments to their writing. Another of our interventions is mini-lab. It occurs every day, either at first or last bell for all students, and it's both an intervention and an enrichment piece for our children. They are homogeneously grouped, and we push the children at their level to promote the growth at their own rates. Math lab, you can move on. Math lab occurs once a week, twice for third grade, where children engage in interactive activities, practicing and strengthening the skills that they've already been taught in class. Let's move on. So as you can see, this is the data you missed with Ms. Relier, so we brought it back around here. All these things in tandem with one singularly focused, dedicated staff yielded progress, academic progress from one year to the next. Substantial progress, all students, all categories, and we're pretty excited about the substantial growth in our students in both language arts and in math. These things yielded us an A in our state report card. Hello. We were also blessed to receive the Distinguished Schools Award at the national level, representing the state of Ohio this year. Our principal received the Hawkins Educator of the Year Award, as well as the most recent one for us being the National Blue Ribbon Award. Now, we didn't set out to go for awards. This is what we do here at Evanston. We endeavor to provide our students with the best
quality instruction possible. We feel our children deserve that, and we want to pour into their future so that they can realize their vision for their lives. And even during this time of virtual learning, we continue to endeavor to do the same. Thank you so much.
Don't leave. Don't leave. We want to ask board members if they have questions or comments for you, Ms. Hill Simmons, or anybody in your team. We're just going to go down the line because I think perhaps everybody's going to say something. Ms. Bowers?
I'm so excited. So excited. First, I want to congratulate the whole team and your school of staff. Miss, I want to say your first name. I'm going to say
Don't do it.
Hill Simmons. I'm going to be appropriate. Congratulations on your distinguished school award, your A for your report card, and the esteemed Blue Ribbon National School Award. The key things I want to identify is that I heard through all of your presentations were the word partnership, team, shared accountability through data, which I thought was huge, and of course the expectation of excellence. I think that was awesome. Congratulations. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Messer?
Yeah, I will echo those comments and just say thank you on behalf of the 325 kids who are lucky enough to have you in their lives, each of you, the kids who came before them and the kids to come. And you've really set an example for CPS and for schools across the country. So thank you for all you've done for these kids.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes, I've been to the school at least 2 times, at least, and it's such a welcoming place. You just feel the energy when you're at Evanston Academy, and it's the teachers, it's the students, their ambassadors, community. There's always community there. It's just just such a welcoming environment. So I'm so happy for you, and congratulations, and you make us and our city look proud.
Thank you. Lindy?
Thank you. And I do have a question I'd like to ask the principal, but before I do that, I wanted to speak to the 1,413 people who have tuned in tonight to watch, because not only is Evanston Academy an A school, but 99, I checked my numbers on my computer here, but 99% of the students attending Evanston are economically disadvantaged. And I think we often hear in Cincinnati and across the country all kinds of reasons why we can't do certain things with low-income kids. And I think that we have just an incredibly powerful example here in our midst of what is possible for all children, period. And I think that's an enormous accomplishment, and I think it matters a lot for the story we tell in our community about what should be possible for all kids. And so that's a transition to my question, which is, if you had one thing or one lesson you've learned about what makes this possible that you'd share with us to try to get more of this across the entire district for all children, what would your most important, you can have more than one if you'd like, but what's your most important advice?
If I think back to just the power, there's a couple different key pieces that got us here. It's the power of shared leadership and being able to openly and authentically receive the direction of someone else. As a new leader, we're not always comfortable giving up that space and power. These folks are bad, and I had to let them be bad. We're in meetings, they're pushing back, and it has made me better because I work with some of the best, but not everybody is ready to receive that. That being one. The second, it's important to expect kids living in poverty to win. That's our expectation. We sell hope at Evanston. Our goal is for every student in every seat to meet with academic achievement, and that's what we fight for, and we push for that every day, nothing less. Once we get all of our schools to that place, and they can be, we'll be fine. But it's the commitment to every kid, and we don't. I think William said it perfectly. When Barry and Sam, no, we don't come to meetings to make excuses. Everybody has a reason why they can't. If you're not happy with the decision that we made or Mrs. Childs and I made, come with something better, or at least something we can discuss. But I have had to learn to allow them to be them and allow them to authentically affect the work. And that's how we got here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Morosky?
Hello, Principal Hill Simmons.
Hello, Mr. Morosky.
Congratulations to you and your team. As you know, I'm a huge fan as somebody who used to work at an agency that partnered with y'all back in the Mona Beckford days. I've been so taken by what Evanston Academy has been able to do, and while my baby goes to a childcare down the street in Evanston, sadly Evanston is not his neighborhood school, but Principal McLean and Hayes will be just fine for us. But it's always nice to be out in your neck of the woods. And something I've been taken by that didn't come up in the presentation but was alluded to is, and it's kind of, I think, points to what you were saying, Mr. Lindy, is one of the things I've always been impressed by is the sheer amount of partnerships and the after-school offerings, in that all 300 plus students literally have half a dozen things that they could do in addition to being in the classroom. And if you were to draw a Venn diagram of Evanston Academy, in my opinion, and it was shown up there as we were talking about, if you're a PE teacher, you also teach writing and math. And we used to talk about that a lot when I was a teacher at the school I was at, and nobody actually ever did it or embraced it. It was just talked about. And so it's really inspiring to see the partnerships, but then also on that Venn diagram that all the teachers kind of know what's going on, have a working knowledge of what's going on. And I used to hire 2 of your teachers for the summertime, as you know, because they did such a good job. So anyhow, thanks so much for what y'all do. Not surprised, but I'm endlessly impressed, so kudos.
Thank you. Ms. Bolton?
Congratulations. It's a tremendous feat to become a blue ribbon school. It's remarkable. The other piece of this is that you all are in a neighborhood that prides itself on being Cincinnati's education neighborhood. So the bar is very high and the expectations are great just in the streets around you. And they take great pride in your achievements, and they should. I tell you this, the holiday breakfasts are well attended and the best in the district. The great kickoffs that you have at GE for the tutoring out at the GE Education Center. I was lucky enough to do that a few times. The other piece is I'm thrilled to hear, and the superintendent knows this, about the emphasis on writing. I think that's critical, crucial, important, and to Mr. Morosky's point that he made as well, I think it's remarkable to have that interconnected kind of cross-discipline, cross-curricular effort that really is a unifying thing. And I want to also personally congratulate you on your leadership. I know it's the team, I know it's the kids, the families, but you must have differences in every school. You know, in the suburbs, that's icing on the cake. But in a big district like ours, with so many different kinds of schools, you've got to have great principals. I really appreciate your service. Thank you so much.
And then last but certainly not least, as the lady over there said, I'm closing out. I did everything that my board colleagues said. I also want to thank you for continuing to demonstrate and model a culture of excellence. Not only when you visit the school, a welcoming environment and hug, which you've been able to hug, but just to watch the enthusiasm of kids wanting to learn and seeing how your staff interact with them. That's a source of pride. And I am very honored to be able to participate in some of the things that you all have had. My last thing that I think was at GE, they did that thing. And wonderful, the level of participation and the engagement of the partners with their students, and it's so much fun. So what I want to say is, again, congratulations. Don't change a thing, just keep doing it better. And I just like that Ms. Bill Simmons' mom and I went to school together. But it was high school, he was Big Red. He was Big Red. So thank you so much to you and your team at Evanston Academy, and we appreciate you very much for what you do for our students.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Okay, so if we can move on now, Superintendent Mitchell, our next presentation.
Yes. So tonight we're going to provide an update, a safety update for the board and the public to provide some up-to-date information about what's happening in Hamilton County as well as the city of Cincinnati. All right. So I want to start off by talking about standards. In June, the board outlined 5 guiding principles, and those are health and safety, in-person learning as much as possible, equity, the use of data analysis, and then fiscal responsibility. Last Thursday, the Governor DeWine announced that Hamilton County, Butler County, and Claremont County are all counties that are in the red according to the public health advisory. And so at that point in time, we made a decision to put a pause on the in-person learning that was scheduled to start this week as we consider our families, our students, and also our staff members who have been very concerned about being in our schools during COVID-19. So the data suggested that we take a pause and re-examine our plan as we look at the 4 measures that indicate whether or not we would be in distance learning or in face-to-face learning. And just to remind everyone, those data points are related to the positivity rate, the number of days that it takes to get a test result, the 14 epidemiological curve, and then the public health advisory, which is the color coding system that put us in the red. Each piece of information is an independent piece of information that we have to look at in its totality, but at the same time, if we don't pay attention to the data, then that means the red leveling system means nothing whatsoever. At this point in time, I'd like to show a very short clip of Dr. Grant Mussman from the Cincinnati Health Department and what he had to say about our county being in the red.
I mean, anytime you have state health officials saying that your county's in the red, I think it merits some examination.
A spokesman for the county's health department says the move to red was largely driven by a rise in COVID-19 hospitalizations.
I mean, anytime you have state health officials saying that your county's in the red, I think it merits some examination.
A spokesman for the county's health department says the move to red was largely driven by a rise in COVID-19 hospitalizations.
The reality is, unlike many other districts in our area, families in the urban core are more likely to be impacted negatively by COVID-19. We serve over 36,000 kids, over 5,000 employees, 65 buildings, and 52 different neighborhoods. It's our responsibility to examine the data very closely when making these decisions because it doesn't just impact our 36,000 kids. It also impacts their families and the community at large. And so we have a responsibility to re-examine the information. You may be aware that Loveland decided to delay their next phase of going to all the kids being in session 5 days a week because of their county being in the red as well. And New York has delayed many of their in-school sessions or in-person sessions due to changes in their data. The good news is that the data is pointing in the right direction as a result of things that have been put in place over the weekend and the latter part of last week. And Sarah Trimble Oliver will show you the data. And the Hamilton County Commissioner for the Health Department anticipates that we will be in the orange this week. As we consider this data, and this data has been very public from the very beginning in terms of the data points that we would look at, we will have to consider how we might look at the data points in their totality to make decisions about when to close and when to remain open, when to go to in-person learning, or when to increase the number of days that we may have our kids in session. Last week, we were very much ready to begin instruction for this week, and we were disappointed that we received the information that the county was in the red as announced by the governor. The public health color coding system and leveling system is a very public and is a very publicly known system. And so we felt that, again, we needed to take a pause considering the fact that we were in the red. At this point in time, I'm going to invite Sarah Trimble Oliver to talk very specifically about the data that put us within the red area.
Good evening. So we know that Hamilton County was put into the level 3 red category as of last Thursday. This change in status actually was a surprise to many because we have not seen an increase in the number of new cases in the county nor in the city. So we want to dig a little bit deeper into why the change in red. Next slide, please. So there are actually 7 indicators that go into this color coding system. And if a county gets flagged for 4 or 5 of them, they go into red. And if they get flagged for 6 or 7, they go into purple. Next slide, please. These are the 7 indicators that go into this color coding system. Hamilton County already had 3 of the indicators, the ones that are circled in the red box that say met. Met in this case is not a good thing. This is why we have been in the orange status since early August, because of those 3 indicators. Last Thursday, we were actually flagged for the 4th indicator, which is the red arrow, which is new hospitalizations. This put us into the red category because that was our 4th. The definition of this indicator is an increasing trend of at least 5 consecutive days in new hospitalizations due to COVID. And our graph is showing that the increase between September 21st and September 26th, we had an increase from 1.1 to 2.7 hospital admissions per day. So this is not a large increase, but it does meet the threshold of that indicator. In fact, any increase of any amount over 5 consecutive days would have met that indicator. As the superintendent mentioned, it is possible and probable that Hamilton County will change back to orange this Thursday because of indicator 5, outpatient visits. That historical increase will fall off of the time period that we're looking at in this scorecard. Next slide, please. The other 3 measures we've been monitoring have remained mainly unchanged. The daily number of new cases. Next slide, please. The daily number of new cases, go ahead to the next slide. As you remember, we are looking at the 7-day moving average. The update is that for the city, 7 of the last 14 days have been decreasing, and the average number of daily new cases has decreased from 29 when I last presented this to you to 27. Next slide, please. The positivity rate has decreased to 2.1% for the city and 2.9% for the county outside of the city as of October 4th. And next slide, please. The average length to receive test results is unchanged. So 2 important notes about the community health measures and specifically about the state's color coding system. So one is that our behavior as individuals in the community directly influences this health data. And it's up to us to be diligent about wearing masks, keeping our distance from others, and not attending large gatherings. Because as we have seen, even small increases can cause an impact on the data we're watching. And so we must not allow ourselves to become fatigued by the pandemic, and we must be diligent about our safety precautions if we want to have our kids back in school. And the second thought is on the color coding county system. This is the most visible and widely known measure of community spread that the media looks at and the public looks at to determine the status of their region. And we have, for months now, communicated to our stakeholders that this is part of our decision-making process and what we will consider in our reopening plans. Now, we have seen in this particular example, it's very easy for a county to move from one color to the next due to small increases in lagging indicators, even when your other measures are holding steady. And so, next slide, please. It is for this reason that we would like to consider allowing for a more flexible correlation to the state's color coding system. And as an example, we are showing Cleveland's model, which is the county in purple means all distance learning. The county is in red, means either distance or blended. Orange means blended, and yellow is in person. The discretion at level 3 for red allows for the district to make changes based on the trends in the city-specific data, such as the other 3 measures that we've been looking at all along. So, for example, if the county is red, but things are improving or holding steady in the other measures, we can get to a blended experience and get back to school. But if the county is red and our other measures are getting worse, that leads to distance learning. So going forward, we would like to consider a similar model. This model will also allow for more consistency in our reopening plans in case the color systems continue to flip back and forth due to small changes in data. And now back to the superintendent.
Thank you, Sarah. So, considering the information, the other data concerning our city, we propose that we move back to the distance learning plan 122 starting next week, October the 12th, and you can see it's pre-K as well as specialized classrooms, and then as well as our kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then 7th and 8th grade. And then the following week, we would welcome back 3 to 6th grade students, and then 9 to 12th grade students, so that we could be back in time before or right at the beginning of the 2nd quarter. So that is our recommendation, that first of all, that we consider adding another caveat to our measures as we think about whether we're in session or with distance learning, and that we go ahead and we move forward next week. We also consider the fact that moving forward, it may mean that as we look at the data, we may close down a classroom or a school, but the data doesn't necessarily say that we need to close down the entire district. So we are ready. We were ready last week. We were ready to welcome our kids back. As I said, we were disappointed that they weren't able to come in this week, but we felt that because we were red, that we needed to look a little bit closer at the data and then also be able to communicate this information to our staff members so they have a better comfort level of returning to the classrooms and our schools. As we think about the blended learning model in terms of the 1-2-2, Now I'd like to introduce our Chief of Technology to come and talk about the infrastructure that's needed as a result of parents asking about the ability to be able to stay in their assigned school if they're in distance learning and they choose not to move back into the district. So Jeremy.
So there are a lot of analogies used when discussing infrastructure. The most common one is around highway systems. So for tonight's purposes, let's imagine a bridge. Just like a bridge, our infrastructure is designed around a predicted capacity that we need to be able to promote our traffic, right? Our capacity is built off of assuming 36,000 students and around 6,000 daily users for business administration and teachers, along with all of our system needs, or the cars, right? So COVID has impacted everything. It includes our IT infrastructure. For some context of what the bridge looks like right now, we have to remember that all of our students are in a distance model. So all of the student cars have been removed from the bridge. What's left was wide open lanes until we decided with the distance model that all of our teachers would be using a distance model or distance teaching platform like Google Meet or Schoology conferencing. To make that happen, we had to upgrade their cars to shiny new trucks. So now our bridge is full of trucks. And the barrier or confusion that we have is around looking at how to bring back the student cars while maintaining some of those new teacher trucks. So as we look at what's possible, there are a few concepts to keep in mind. These aren't unique to, these are not unique to technology or infrastructure. They're just general systems considerations like capacity. So this would be the number of cars or trucks as a function of what the bridge can support, right? The second one is overhead. Think of these are like the lane dividers, the shoulders, the medians on the bridge. These are the things that are required to keep the system running the way it's supposed to, and they take up capacity even though they're not the purpose of the system. So if you look at the chart here, it gives us a good illustration example of how the scaling works through infrastructure. Across the bottom, you see an increased number of nodes. As the number of nodes increases, the amount of overhead also increases. So you end up in a situation where you get diminishing returns. By increasing the capacity, you also increase your overhead, which makes your total investment lower. And nodes are not just people in this case, they're everything that attaches to the infrastructure. So that includes network projectors, cell phones, even down to the water flow valve and temperature sensors on our HVAC system, right? For CPS, we're talking hundreds of thousands of nodes that we have to consider when we're looking at the scaling of our systems. The next factor to consider is that not all uses are equal. Based on the high density guide for higher education from Cisco, you can see the chart on the left that provides some information around the profile of normal access use. So in green, you'll see some of the very basic profile uses like instructional web browsing, one-directional consumption of video like YouTube. And these things you can see are listed as 1 megabits per second. That measurement isn't specifically important beyond just knowing it's 1 unit of speed, right? But it's 1 meg, and then we can look at the red line. This represents the video streaming / video conferencing use of the system. You can see just as the small number 3 would represent a one-on-one, just you and one other person. As we add an entire classroom, you can see that number increases all the way up to 6 or 7 megabits per second. The important part to take away here is that when you look at those numbers is to realize that that one use at its lowest case equals the entire profile for normal student and teacher use, the green items. And it's not a replacement use either. So it's not you have the 3 megs and then this is a separate replacing that. This is in addition to. So you're actually looking at a teacher doing the video conferencing along with their normal profiles now up to 3 times as much. as what our pre-COVID normal usage would look like. So the next chart is a function of the capacity of Wi-Fi as additional users access the system. If you look at the green line, the horizontal green line, this represents that green profile from the previous chart. And you can see if you go over to where it intersects with the lines of the number of clients, there's up to 40, right? And this is a representative number. Ours is in the thousands, but this gives us a good illustration that we could have 40 users at a single wireless access point and still be able to support that normal profile. Now we add in the streaming, and we're looking at the red vertical line. Notice that it is much more shallow into the chart, meaning that instead of 40 users that we can scale up to with the same investment, we're now down to below 15. So this leads us to our first big question. Why can others do it? Right? So the illustration you see here is an interesting picture. The image on the left represents an average small enterprise system. This would be a school that has 1,500, 3,000, maybe even 5,000 students, staff, and systems that they're dealing with. The image on the right represents a little less than 50% of CPS. I couldn't put 100% on it because it would scale so large that it couldn't fit in any meaningful way. But what this allows us to see just in a visual representation is the complexity and the size difference between those organizations, right? It shows that we face a very different level of scaling consideration, so it becomes very difficult to benchmark against smaller organizations. So let's take a look back at the CPS bridge and talk about more specifically its capabilities. In looking at the school-based distance learning model, we started running a lot of scenarios, and this is just a sampling of those scenarios. But these are the ones that represented the middle section of what was close to possible, if not possible. You can see at the top in blue, yellow, and red that there are three large columns that represent sort of the criteria of what those scenarios were based on. We'll start on the far right with the red. You'll notice there's not a lot of green underneath. Those green boxes are indicating scenarios that would work. But it's very important at the top section where you see those school names, Aiken, Amee, Bond Hill, that's looking at the situation or the scenario only from that particular school. So just taking that myopic view, there's quite a few green boxes that could work. But then you have to drop down to the district-wide line and look at those boxes where we compare not just the individual schools, but all of them as part of the whole system. Since we are a large district, everything becomes part of that system view, and each has an impact on the other. So once you look at that line, you can see there are only two scenarios that show plausibility. That being the area, that golden halo area there between 25 and 50% of students being dedicated to remote distance learning, with no more than 25% of the teachers being dedicated to doing streaming/distance learning. So what do those 25% mean in a practical sense? When we talk about district-wide distance streaming option, that at least 25% of students represents at least 8,750 students that need to be dedicated in a dedicated distance learning model. That up to 25% teachers means we need less than 700 approximately teachers that would be providing the streaming option. Beyond just the technical restrictions that we're looking at here, there are some logistical concerns on how to make that model practical. First is determining that we would have the number of students possible to make that number realistic. We'd have to complete the teacher allocation or the TAC process so that we can align the number of teachers we have available for the process. And then we have to look at the numbers resulting from both to make sure they align. and to make sure that we can realign all of the teacher staff that we have to be able to do this model, because it would require changing of teachers. And we'll get into a little bit more on that later. Looking at the 700 teachers or allocated teachers that we could have, as a priority option, we could look at making the option available for specialized classrooms, which would immediately take up to 196 of those allocated spots available. The remaining 500-ish could be allocated between elementary and high schools proportionally. One very important reminder is that this model would still be based on all in-person students and all remote students or distance learning students, still being in an A-B model. So now that we have an idea of a possible scenario that could work within restrictions, we come to our second big question. Can we buy more? Instead of just being limited to the 25% of students or the less than 25%, pardon me, less than 25% of teachers, can we buy more? So let's go back to our bridge analogy. Just like the bridge, infrastructure is comprised of a lot of individual segments. There's hundreds of them. Some segments can be upgraded individually, safely, in isolation, without impacting the system. Those are the those are the segments that we've been working on and hitting very hard since the COVID closures began last spring. Those are the things we've already done to make us capable with the capacity that we have today, so that we can do full-on distance learning while we're in this model. It's also important to note, though, that there are segments of the bridge that can't be renovated and replaced without taking an entire system-level view. And it's that system-level view that that makes us realize the overall infrastructure capacity is actually a function of strategic planning over years. Here you can see a timeline of our capacity planning, which actually begins back in 2013 and 2014. And that's what led to our capacity of today. So in fiscal year 14, way back then, feels like, we started converting our core infrastructure equipment over to a lease cycle that gave us a 5-year refresh. That enabled us to establish a baseline capacity that we could predict into the future, and we knew what our upgrade path would be every 5 years. From there, we spent the next 3 years building that foundation, and then in fiscal year 17, we were able to start layering on additional capacity services. So the first was one-to-one Wi-Fi. We added that and began looking at the new data center migration. From there, we went to fiscal year 18, where we refreshed our district-wide storage so that we had quick and stable access to files and print anywhere on the system. Then we started construction on the new data center, which gave us the growth capacity looking for the future. Fiscal year 19, we made the next step. That was the first year that we had for our lease refresh from the initial core investment, so we could make a leap in our capacity at that point when we replaced those switching equipment. We also redid our telecommunication contracts. These are our E-rate contracts, so that we would then have the ability to do scaling within those contracts over their term. Prior to this, we had been on a fixed term schedule so that each contract gave us one fixed amount of capacity for the entire length. With this, the way we redid it, we were able to adjust the capacity for those contracts along with the other advancements and changes we were making so that we could keep the capacity growing. So in FY20, this was last school year, we started looking at the cabling. This is the next big barrier that we have to address for our capacity planning going forward and our capacity growth. The physical cabling within our buildings. So if you think back to the initial FMP process, the facilities master plan, the first round of buildings are now nearing 20 years of age. And the cabling that was put in is showing age, wear and tear, but also we've went through a significant increase in capacity needs since that time. So it's now becoming the natural time to start replacing that cabling with upgraded systems. And this represents a major project that is going to require tens of thousands of contract resource hours over the next several years. And this is a great example of one of those capacity growth dependencies that you can't necessarily shrink, right? So our goal is always faster. But this is one of those that even with additional funds being allocated, we can shrink the schedule down. But given the size and scope of it, you're still never going to get to the point where you're talking weeks or several months. You're always going to be talking about years. So as you can follow the rest of the schedule out, you'll see cabling keeps repeating essentially for the next 3 to 4 years. Then in fiscal year 21, we had plans to do the next part of that cabling replacement starting on the work, and both of these projects have now been delayed due to COVID, because we can't bring in those massive resource contract teams to our buildings until we get to a much more safe and healthy environment, for our employees, our staff, and our students. So that is a slight delay that we've ran into now. The next part on fiscal year 22, the next layer of capacity that we need to start building onto is our audio-visual and schoolroom technology. This is the cameras, the audio systems in the room, things that would enable a live streaming classroom to be of a good quality. So that's another layer that we need to add on to going forward. And as you can see, in FY23, we start our refresh cycles again. So all of this essentially is to show that the capacity planning is a function of years, and that you continuously have to build and plan to the future. What you see below that is summarized by these arrows, right? The orange arrow is our needed capacity. That's looking at our historical data, the trending data to go into the future. What's K-12 education look like tomorrow? That's taking those factors into consideration to create that predictive model that says this is where our capacity is going to be. Now, that was prior to COVID. That's where that capacity came from and why it was predicted. The green arrow is our planned or our current capacity. Our current capacity is what we plan to build. You can see it extends a little beyond our needed capacity. So our design philosophy has always been to lead slightly over what we need so that we have room for growth, and we have, frankly, some room for emergency capacity needs that we're in right now. The final arrow, the red arrow, as you can see, is where COVID has pushed our current needed capacity. So instead of where we needed to be based on our predictive model, COVID has impacted and pushed that further ahead. You can notice it's lining up very closely with our planned current capacity now. Fortunately, because we had that extra room, we've been able to mostly meet the needs that we've had going forward. But we have to be, at this point, very careful about how we manage our capacity so that we don't cause major traffic jams or issues on our bridge. So hopefully this gives a better understanding as to why we can't stream every classroom just as a straightforward option. There are possible options and scenarios that we can look at logistically in a smaller capacity, but it becomes difficult for the whole picture when you're looking at it system-wide. To provide more insight as to the logistics of the alignment for the classroom perspective is Deputy Superintendent Tiana Amon.
Next slide, please. So what is the bottom line? We need at least 25% of our families to select school-based distance learning. We're going to send home a commitment form, which will state, while in the AB blended model, I prefer to stream into the classroom on my in-person days. So that's what this model will look like. The second question is, we cannot have more than 25% of our teachers streaming. So we have to review schedules and staffing. So here's a quick visual of what staffing may look like and the changes in schedule. So we have 3 teachers in our sample, 3rd grade classroom. We started off in distance learning, 15 students in person in each teacher's classroom. If we decide to do the remote learning at the school level, we will send out a commitment form, and this is an example. So in teacher 1 class, there's 3 students who would like to go to remote. In teacher 2, 2 students. Since we cannot have all 3 teachers streaming, we have 1 teacher. So 3 kids from teacher's 1 classroom and 2 from teacher 2 classroom would have to transfer into teacher 3, who would be doing both the in-person and the streaming. So that's just a quick example of the staffing and the change of schedule. So if we move to blended learning quickly, while we gather this information on what our parents will commit to and looking at our staffing, we needed a bridge meanwhile. So I wanted to share here, if parents and families wanted to continue in their school in a remote learning situation, this is what the day would look like. They would participate in the Google Meet sessions on Monday. Tuesday through Friday, we'll be accessing the Schoology lessons. And then we have other resources from CPS TV. We have updated the distance learning website. And I want to keep that up there for a few moments because it's up and ready. And it's important not to do www. Just go into your search bar for distancelearning.cps-k12.org. In this model, it is also important to talk about attendance. Attendance is based on work completion and logging on to the Schoology lessons. So this is something that we can do now if we move into the blended learning option. Next slide, please. I also want to remind everyone of our district option of CDA, Cincinnati Digital Academy. They are using Edgenuity. You work at your own pace. And then we're also offering distance courses from school-based teachers. So here's an example of some of the courses we are offering at CDA. However, the teachers in our other schools are teaching these classes either before or after school. We have 7th grade AA in ELA, Math, Science, and Social Studies, a AA in Chemistry. We're also offering AP in Literature, Statistics, Biology, and Government, along with German. We have some students at Fairview. So we are continuing to support the neighborhood schools, home schools option at CDA. Thank you.
So we are prepared. We're ready to open this week, and we're prepared to open next week, and that is our recommendation. Last week, we had every single principal come in and over a 2-day period, walk through every single department in which we had our staff ready and willing to help them through transportation, making sure they had all the PPE that they need, procedures, thermometers, batteries for thermometers, staffing, and food service. So we were ready last week to go, and then we hit red. We are saying we are prepared to move forward, and we want to move forward as quickly as next week. In terms of learning, we want to move forward with the 1-2-2 model. Walnut Hills staying in distance learning because of their enrollment and the size of their campus and classrooms. Pre-K would be 4 days a week, and specialized classrooms would be 4 days a week as well. It is important to recognize that although we stayed in distance learning this week, we have not lost instruction. Instruction is still taking place. Our students are still in our Google Meet sessions and are still on Schoology, and our CDA students are still using Edgenuity. So let's start. In person. As we think about starting in person, it's going to be extremely important for us to identify whether or not, as a district, we feel that if we are in the red, that we can either have distance learning or blended learning. And that was the example that Sarah Trimble Oliver gave us. And if we're in the orange, then it's blended learning, so it's face-to-face. Those are decisions that I think need to be made this evening. We will continue to accommodate families, as our deputy superintendent stated, thinking about the bridge and between the bridge to get our students who are interested in staying with distance learning the option of staying with their school. We are working through those to see if we can make it work. However, we do have to keep in mind the technology infrastructure that was laid out by Jeremy Gullahue. So that is our presentation. We are continuing and are committed to moving forward with those specialized classes that our deputy superintendent mentioned at the very end, that our parents were concerned about them not having access to at CDA, and so we've been able to make those accommodations. So it's ready, set, go. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Open the floor for questions, comments, and discussion. Mr. Morosky first.
Thank you, President Jones. I have a few logistical questions regarding the online learning, and then some broader just sort of concerns and suggestions perhaps as we move forward. One of my questions is, and I think I understand this, and just to maybe put a highlight on it and a pin in it for folks watching if they got confused, like I did during the IT presentation. Are we not all on the same bridge right now? And if not, could we just unpack that in like 30 seconds or less? Not to put a time limit, but just why can we not do 100% of people and only 25%? Just like put a pin in it, if it could for me.
Sure. So it's about balance. And like I said, when we focus on that the uses aren't equal, that some uses require more capacity on the bridge than others, so we have to be able to make room to balance how much of which uses we have. And by bringing the cars back, the students back to the bridge, sorry, I'll stay with the analogy here.
No, it's good. It works for me. I was an English teacher.
As we bring back the cars to the bridge, we have to offload some of the trucks to make space. So it's about balancing the uses to where the overall system has the capacity to keep all the traffic flowing.
Okay, I think I get that. My next question then is, so if 8,750 students would have to choose the in-school remote, am I correct in thinking that 3,000 of those spots are already taken up by Walnut Hills High School students? So it really is only 5,000 or so students that have that option.
Oh, sorry. There is a heavy skew to that with Walnut being in a full distance model, it does bias some of the gap. However, one of the important notes to remember is that the 25% overall does need to be relatively distributed across the system, right? It can't be just a single pinpoint like Walnut, even though that does bias a portion of the numbers we're talking about.
A pretty large number.
A pretty large number,
okay.
Yes.
And then this one I had asked last week, and so I assume the answer is still the same, which I completely understand and respect. But for parents, this is probably, and I appreciate it so much, Jeremy. Thank you for putting all the time in the presentation for us. This is likely more for the superintendent. For the parents that want to keep their kids home, we still probably going to need to wait a couple weeks? I know you said you're going to do the survey. But are we going to need to wait and see how many teachers show up? And should parents just keep their children home and hope that there are teachers to teach them in school? They enroll in CDA, or what should they do?
Yes. So we are preparing a bridge for the kids who are in that in between. And so the real one of the major factors we have to consider is when we open, how many kids actually show up, to identify if we can even reallocate a teacher to be able to service the kids who want to stay in their assigned school. And so if you could go back to the slide, I can do it myself, maybe. There.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to, we can't have all the teachers streaming at the same time. We have to be able to identify a teacher who would be able to like peel off and be able to go and work specifically with the students who want distance learning but want to still be attached to their home school, which quite honestly means that there's a possibility that a student could still be at their home school but not be assigned to the teacher who they had been experiencing for the first part of the school year because of the number of kids who may actually show up. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I'm just curious that while we wait to see if those teachers exist, like what the direction would be for parents in those 2 weeks.
So our deputy superintendent is going to come and talk
Great.
about the options as it relates to instruction.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We are ready. So those families will log on Monday, participate in the Google Meet with the classroom teachers and the students. So they will get their lessons and their self-directed opportunities for days Tuesday through Friday.
All right. Great. Thank you. And then lastly, then I will pass the mic. I won't air all the same concerns that I still have, but I would like to suggest, as per the CDC, that we do monitor our maximum case incidence levels, which just today they come back out and say that airborne transmission is real, and they have come out and said that our region is at higher risk in transmission in schools. And so while the daily cases lowering is great, it needs to be taken in the context of the whole and the community spread. And so I think it's great that it seems that Hamilton County, City of Cincinnati residents are taking this pretty seriously, as per the graphs. I would just suggest and hope that we take it in the broader context. So thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers first, then Mr. Lindy.
Yes, thank you. I just had, you probably already clarified some of that in the data with this slide, because I was going to ask, are the possible teacher 3, the need of them being able to do both, that's being able to sift out and discuss at the building level on the expectation of that third possible teacher having to do in-person and streaming?
Yes, I'm going to ask our deputy superintendent to come up. Now, again, this is all dependent upon the number of kids who actually show up.
Right, right.
We actually could have enough kids who show up to fill up all 3 classrooms.
Which means no streaming, possibly?
What it could mean, if we had 15 out of all, that teacher could possibly just do all streaming or work all remote.
Okay.
So it's based on the number of students electing to do blended learning from their school. Also, to answer your question, it will definitely be a partnership in working with the schools, identifying staff and teachers. We have teachers who requested the ability to work from home. So in that particular incident, possibly, if there's a full classroom, possibly you could work remotely. But it's all in the numbers to determine what the staffing will look like.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy.
Just a little bit onto that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've talked about this quite a bit. So the only way that third teacher can peel off to do the distance learning is if you have a small enough number in the other 2 classrooms to still have your 6 feet of social distancing, right? We can't load down those other 2 classrooms and not have 6 feet. So that's why I keep saying it really depends on the number of kids who actually show up next week.
Thank you. Mr. Lindy.
Thanks, President Jones. I think Just to say at the outset, I'd like to say that I think we're doing the right thing, and I want to say thank you to the administration for doing what you're doing. My reasons for saying that are similar to what I've shared in the past. I think I'm worried about the kids we're not currently reaching in the remote model. I think we're better understanding the science and the local public health data. I think this is responsive to the experience of parents and considers, I think, the very real risk of long-term learning loss. And I love that parents who don't feel that that's right for them can have an option to stay remote and they're in school. And I think all these things are good, and I want to say thank you. I also wanted to say thank you for the bridge metaphor and for all the work you and your team, Jeremy, clearly put into this, and for the examples, and also for the effort to try to get to something that will work. I just genuinely appreciate that. I do have like one or two questions just to make sure I understand it, because I'm still confused about just one or two things, but I hope they're quick. So I think I'm trying to use the bridge metaphor. And so imagine we've got the bridge full of trucks. I think what I'm trying to understand is, let's say we don't add anything to the bridge at all. So currently we have every teacher in CPS teaching remotely. What happens if they all keep doing that and the kids who come back physically into the classroom don't do anything online at all? Like, that seems to be a situation where it's the same bridge, same trucks, but we haven't added any cars. And that's the scenario where I'm still stuck on why that wouldn't work.
So from a pure technical perspective of just the math behind the bridge, that would work fine. I think the challenge there would be, and I may ask Deputy Amott to come up and speak more, but I think the challenge there would be the integration of our curriculum with the online nature of it at this point.
Did a great job. That's absolutely correct. Along with the technology plan, there was an academic curriculum and technology have worked together for years to build the capacity of our staff and students when it comes to instruction and accessing online books and curriculum and materials. So the technology is a vital part of our Tier 1 curriculum.
So if I hear that right, it's like the reason we can't is our curriculum requires us to have cars on the bridge if the kids are back in school.
That's correct.
And so that's helpful. And I think where that leads me is, I think the plan you've put together seems very promising and very exciting, and I think we should try it. Like, if for some reason it doesn't work, like we don't get the opt-ins that we want from parents, so that it makes it just hard to pull off, it makes me think we could take a D on the tech-related academic components just for this year, like if that's what it took. And again, I don't think we're there yet, because I think you have a plan. I think we should try this plan. But if for some reason we're stuck on a next contingency, I think that's I'm just one person, but that was my perspective. And I think just to say last thing about why that matters, I think, it seems to be the difference between whether we can have 5 days of live instruction for kids versus 3 days plus 2 that they're doing without a live teacher. And again, you put a lot of thought into this. I think we should try it, but if we get stuck, that's what I wanted to suggest next.
I would just like to say that when students come back into the building, to not allow them to use access or have access to technology while in school will take us years back in terms of where we have come to integrate the use of technology into our daily instruction. Just want to put that clarifying point in. We've worked for a number of years to not only have the one-to-one technology initiative, but the integration of that technology as a part of how our kids operate in school. Not to mention the online testing that happens when kids are in school as well. And so again, it would set us back many years in terms of our advancements of using technology.
Okay. Before Mr. Messer begins, I just want to share with the board that we have 91 speakers. And, I'm just suggesting that board members be conscientious of that so that we can move on. a lot of the questions might be sort of in the weeds, and while I think it's important or whatever, just keep that in mind. 91 speakers, that's a couple hours. So when we want to give everybody the opportunity. Mr. Messer?
Thank you. Mine will be very quick. I trust you as our superintendent, and I trust the team that put together this recommendation, and I fully support that. What I will say is, I'm sure our public is very split on this phone here tonight, and what I'll say is, after benchmarking across the state, we're giving more flexibility, more options than any other district that I've seen anywhere. And I commend you for doing everything you can, but I absolutely refuse to get in the weeds to say how that's going to work, because it's got to happen how it can happen, and your team is set up for that. So I want to say thank you for building in that flexibility and trying to create a win-win, because this is not an easy situation for our families, for our city, for our country, and I believe you're trying to make the best out of the situation. I say thank you for the recommendation tonight.
Thank you. Bolton?
Yes, thank you. A lot of this won't really be able to be determined, as you said, until the TAC is over, and also we have the full reading of the enrollment. Isn't that true? I mean, we're waiting for that kind of data to really be able to talk about this. And my hope is that we'll get some opportunity on Saturday as we do. So just in the meantime, thank you for making the point that right now we can't go back to having no technology in live classes. We can't, that doesn't work. A real quick question. We're talking in terms of the strategic planning over time, as Jeremy referred to it, because of personnel, finances, technology itself, and we don't have all the money we need at once. And even if we had all the money we needed at once, you have to prepare people to be able to use it and whatever. So if we did have all the money we could need, and if you could do it in a year, how much would it cost? I mean, strategic planning sometimes can just be incrementalism.
So hopefully I can ask for a little latitude that I'm thinking very, very rough numbers here. You're saying if we had, the blank check and a year to do it in to the extent to be able to do specifically the live streaming from every classroom, or more of a targeted, 10 per building kind of thing?
Both.
If we wanted to do every classroom, it would be significantly more difficult. I would put it easily at the 10 million plus.
Okay. Thank you.
That sounds like a good guess, right? That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay. Other questions or comments? I'll just add my little 2-cent worth here. I appreciate the information that was provided up front to begin the conversation of acknowledging the negative impact on our community when we're in the red. I also appreciate sort of the upfrontness about the fact that in the red could mean a couple of different things. One being that one person gets hospitalized as opposed to 5,000 people. So I appreciate that. Emotionally, and I'll just say this, emotionally, I thought that the option for 100% distance learning, I felt at ease with that, because I felt like it would have given us the consistency and the stability over time that would allow us to do more in-depth planning around how to come back and blend it. However, having said that, I honestly believe, as a person who lives in a community of color, I happen to believe that a lot of our families will come back to the classroom. So some of the concerns about our kids who we are not connecting with, they're not connecting for lots of different reasons. And I believe that once we open, and like you said, when they get in the seats, we'll have a different picture. And so I'm really hopeful around that. So given the presentation tonight, although my heart says let's stay in full distance, I think my mindset is let's start here. Let's build the stability and continuity for that. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to just highlight is I think probably like many of our workplaces or the workplaces of people on the phone here, we can't forget we're also an employer of some amazing staff. And one thing I will know that my company's done more of than ever before is just employee engagement. And we just have to make sure that we're staying close to our employees, that we're giving them the support they need. And I know you already highlighted that the last meeting, but I think that has to be just a core part of everything we do, is just keeping our staff top of mind, making them feel supported, and addressing any concerns as they come, because they are the magic that is needed to bring these kids back.
Okay. So I think just to kind of sum it up, Superintendent, do you have any, I think what I'm hearing just in terms of what's coming from board members is that it is being recommended that the 122 begin with the plan to start Monday with the phase-in plan.
Yes, in addition to adding the caveat of being at red or in red could mean distance or blended.
Yes.
That would give us more flexibility to move.
I think so. I think that's where folks are. Okay.
Okay, thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we are now at the item on the agenda for hearing the public. The board prides itself on being transparent and as open as possible. Consistent with the state's direction to minimize public gatherings, we are convening this video conference call to include opportunity for public comment. Here are the specific instructions for participation in hearing the public. Members of the public who wish to speak during the board meeting must send a request within the first 10 minutes of the meeting by clicking on the hand icon on your screen. Treasurer Wagner will be the timekeeper. Once the request has been granted, you will receive a notice on your screen. Click yes to go interactive. If you do not want your video active, please disable the video camera icon. After speaking, you will briefly see the welcome screen again as you transition back to the live stream meeting. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. When the buzzer goes off, your 2 minutes are up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. We ask that your public commentary be respectful of all those listening in. Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, Ms. Wagner.
Our first three speakers are Alex Q, Lindsay, and Shauna. Go ahead, Alex, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone tonight. I just wanted to, I know you've spoken a lot about the data and looking at the data. And I was curious to see if the board. Okay, sorry. I was wondering if the board had had an opportunity to look at the Ohio Department of Health dashboard regarding schools in Hamilton County that have gone back to 5 days a week. In looking at one big school district, it's obviously not an urban school district, but it is a large, it's not as large as CPS, but the Mason School District, they went back to 5 days a week on August 31st. They have 10,584 students who went back to school. And out of those 10,584 students, 28 students tested positive for COVID. So that's 0.003%. And 13 staff tested positive for COVID. I think what's important to see in the data is that 93% of the people who tested positive at that school was due to community exposure. 7% was school-sponsored activity exposure, i.e. sports, but 0% was in-school exposure to COVID. So in many senses, the safest place for our kids is back in school. So I'm asking CPS really work hard to get our kids back into school 5 days a week and to look at some of the data of the other schools all over Hamilton County who've been back at school and their numbers of COVID cases. They're very small. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Felder. Can everyone hear me?
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Lindsay. Your 2 minutes are starting.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to express mine and many parents' support of the plan to return to in-person instruction. Within just a few hours this afternoon, hundreds of parents signed a petition supporting the return to in-person instruction. I love data. It's part of what I do for my job. I love to analyze it and I love to look at it. And I like to make decisions off of it. The decision made in June to use color coding led to an overly simplified metric. 4 months later, we know more. And we need to be able to use the data to make decisions. Thus, I'm fully supportive of Superintendent Mitchell's proposal to allow flexibility when we're coded red. I'm particularly concerned for the students that CPS is currently failing. There are 3,000 students, nearly 10%, who have yet to log in. Nearly 50% of students in the district have IEPs or some kind of special need, and I can tell you that those are not being met virtually. And over 50% of students are below the poverty limit, and school offers so much more for these students than just education. It's an access to healthcare, nutrition, counseling, and frankly, just stability that they might not have in their lives outside of the school building. Net in-person instruction is needed to meet the vast majority of students, many of whom cannot be here to advocate for themselves. I'm supportive of continuing virtual, and I think we should make it the best option that we can, but this should not hold us back from in-person for those who need it. Thank you.
Donna, you're up.
Hello. Can you guys hear me clear? Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm wondering, is there some type of option for the parents? As she said, the speaker before said there are children that need to be in the school. Have you guys thought about contacting parents and getting those students who need a in-person learning in to school instead of making it a requirement that everyone sends their child in? The CDA, the Digital Academy, it's not as good as certain schools that we are going into. So I feel like a lot of people and students will be robbed of the education that they were prior getting. And with just as far as like the students, there are a lot of teachers not being met with the information from you guys directly. So it doesn't sound like there's a lot of teachers who will be on board. You guys keep saying, if this happened, if that happens. Well, what if these teachers and these students decide to stay home? What plan do you guys have to, make sure everyone is still learning? We're getting information that's incorrect. After DeWine's conference, I called to several different schools and the Board of Education to make sure you guys were on the same page. However, I was told several different things, which could be a bit frustrating. Your staff are learning things after the parents and students, but or just not learning it at all. You guys, we have to have better communication. You guys may.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Lanier, you're next.
Did you say me? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, jeez. Okay. My name is Yusuf Munir. I am 17 years old. I am a senior at Walnut Hills High School. I have been on these board meetings many, many times, and I'm sure many of you recognize me. I'm sure some of you are happy to see me. I'm sure some of you are more sad. First things first, I did not think I was going to have to talk about this again, but I think it's just absolutely astounding that you guys think a week after Hamilton County going back in red is a good time to go back to in-person schooling. I just think that's absolutely wonderful work. I'm glad you guys care so much about the safety. Superintendent Mitchell, I think you said 36,000 or 30,000 kids. I'm glad you care about all of those, especially the lower income ones who don't have access to healthcare that students in schools like Walnut Hills might. The next thing I want to focus on is the anti-racism policy. I want to talk a little bit about data. And in particular, I want to talk about the fact that in every single CPS public high school, Black students are disproportionately punished, except for in one school. They're disproportionately given suspensions, which makes students 3 times more likely to enter into the prison system. And even more than that, the fact that the anti-racism policy doesn't even talk about the role that cops play in our schools. These are people with guns. Okay, I want to clarify. These are people with guns who criminalize our students, in particular our Black students. And in Ohio, the presence of cops in schools leads to Black students, again, being 3 times more likely to be criminalized. For the behavior of a child, you guys are putting them at risk being criminalized. And all because you guys want to strengthen your relationship with the CP, who has, I'm sure, proven just to be the absolute moral backbone of our city. There is much better places where this funding can go. We need things like transformative justice. We want you to demand from the city that instead of putting funding towards cops in our schools, get restorative justice, get like anything else besides.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Megan Rivet, you're next, and Katie Long, you're after her.
Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. I am a CPS parent and I'm urging you to open the schools immediately. The students who want and need to be in school have been given zero choice. I'm very happy for the plan presented this evening by the administration, and I urge the board to vote for our students to return. I also urge the administration and the board to start to plan for 5 days now. It has taken us months to get here, and I don't want to lose any more precious time. As previous meetings have stated, over 3,000 students haven't logged in. And what about our students with disabilities, as a parent just mentioned? Their FAPE, their free and appropriate education, is being denied daily. I can't imagine the legal costs this is going to bring on the district as we look at extended school year costs and compensatory services that these students, because they're being left behind right now. Last night, a group was formed on Facebook called Open Cincinnati Public Schools, and it already has over 377 members. This morning, a change.org petition was started, and it's at already 568 people in 8 hours. This board has been hearing from people who are fearful and want virtual, but I'm confident the families wanting in-person instruction are the silent majority. But I'm happy with the plan that we have right now, and I urge you to vote for it. I am a CPS parent, and I'm a very concerned taxpayer, and I'm urging you to please open our schools. Thank you.
Katie Long, you're up, and Haley Webster, you're after that.
Are you guys able to hear me? Hello? Are you guys able to hear me?
Well, now you're.
Hello, can you guys hear me? All right. Okay, are you guys able to hear me now?
Ed.
Okay, so today's meeting was brought today, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly the meeting was for, because at this point, what I'm gathering from you guys is that our babies are dollar signs. Everything is equating to how much and what you guys will be behind in if children don't do in person. It's sickening, it's disgusting, and it's a shame. We are doing okay, and now every chance you guys get, you want to slip in the in-person. Just keep going remote. There are parents who they want their children in there. Contact those parents and tell them they can bring them in. It's not fair for you guys to push and require parents to either come and send your child into a possible danger or enroll into a secondary education system. The digital academy is not the best, and you guys won't even offer the things that are being offered in school. And Mrs. Mitchell, I just really wanted to say to you, we need more. We need more. We're feeling like that the Black community or minority community are the ones who, by your data and all data, are most affected. However, let's send these kids who are most affected by COVID or educational issues.
Before I bring the next speaker in, I just want to make an announcement for each speaker not to ask us if we can hear you. If we have trouble, our tech team will help you, but it's creating a lot of feedback for us. So our next speaker is Haley Webster. Go ahead, Haley.
Hi. Getting a lot of information tonight, and from all these parents who are very passionate about the education here at CPS. As a taxpayer, a parent, and a human being, I'm thinking that maybe we could go about this a little bit better. There are children such as Yusuf who are speaking tonight, just like the young lady last week who said that you guys are just waiting to have these children die. You guys are not listening to us. At the first initial meeting, where the meeting was very long for 4 hours, you guys started to get frustrated and everything else. But we were all on the same page until the last 30 minutes where you guys said, oh, hey, well, how about this? How about we try this? Let's sneak this in real quick. Can anyone here raise their hand and say that their children or grandchildren are going into a CPS school? Are any of you guys willing to volunteer and be at a Cincinnati public school during this COVID? Are you guys willing? It all sounds good, but your actions are showing us that you guys don't care. Cincinnati Public and this board seems to be a group of corrupt officials. And it's disgusting.
Jerome Belcher, you're next, and Maureen Williams, you're after Mr. Belcher.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to start first by stating that I appreciate you guys reinstating my ability tonight to speak after I was rejected for whatever reason. I think that shows a lot of class to reject someone for sharing their views, but that's another story. Just letting you guys know that as it stands right now as a board, you guys are going to have to contend with another fact of data that you may not be aware of. And that is at this very moment, there's over 100 parents that are in the process of taking their kids out of CPS or in the process of preparing to do so. Okay, you guys have put us in a really bad position. You guys have put us in a position where we don't feel like you care anything at all about what we're saying. And as a direct result, we're getting the transcripts for our kids. Check the data. You probably should run a numbers check on that to see how many parents have already done that, and then how many parents have asked for the records request over the last couple of days. You guys need to start listening because you hit a group of parents now, especially the Walnut Hills parents, that have been bullied and have been taken advantage of and haven't been heard, and they're pushing back, and I'm going to help them do that as best as we can. We've already hit DeMario's office up in Columbus, and I'm prepared to hit it further beyond that if this doesn't change soon. Thank you.
Maureen Williams, you're up, and Angela Podachink. Thank you.
Just to let you guys know about our family. Private school. 5 days a week. Third grader is still currently at Kilgore as of right now. If this does not change, back at least children deserve better. If you look at the data, 2 children have died, which is absolutely horrible. 5 children died from the flu last year. I am confused as why CPS is not putting our in front of whatever agenda is going on. Our children deserve better. Saddens us. We have been a Kilgore family for years, and I want this to end. Our children deserve better. Thank you very much, and I appreciate if you guys send our kids back in person. Every child deserves an education. Thanks.
Angela P., you're next. Thank you.
I think my name is Patuki and I can grade CPS.
Lieutenant recommend turn to a model and simply her day should take nuance of changing this given problem. I'm only administratively develop fast focus to warming and math schools. Favorite board. Is superintendent recommend to back lot on that deeply and circumstance. Second, these all prior to the person students special needs and for who can yet reading at pre-kindergarten and first classes. There is rise that school
So it sounds like we're having a lot of technical difficulties, and we're trying to work it out, but we are going to continue.
Yeah, so it looks like the difficulties maybe with the Blue Jeans app itself. So they're trying to work it out though.
So are we still on the same person? Okay. Do
me cry.
Can I go to the next person? Jessica Powell, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to go against what Carolyn said and make sure I don't sound like a mutant alien. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you guys hear me? Sorry, it was just been awful reception for the other speakers. Okay, so here's what I want to say. My name is Jessica Powell, and my kids go to Gamble Montessori Elementary. I absolutely love my kids' school, and so this really comes from the heart for me. To me and to my family, this entire issue that we keep coming back to the school board on is really an issue of choice. And I am one of the many families that has wanted the choice for my kids to go back to school since June. And to be clear, I want families to have an opportunity for choice for quality remote learning. And there's no reason for parents to be pitted against each other, and that's really what it feels like a lot. But, you know, choice is the key here. And so I'm thrilled to hear Superintendent Mitchell's recommendation for families to have a choice for their kids to go back to school next week. And I hope that any return will not be followed by knee-jerk reactions to close schools at the drop of a hat like we saw last week. One of the things that Superintendent Mitchell said is this: families in the urban core are more likely to be impacted by COVID-19. And I would just add that in CPS's decision to keep kids remote, this disproportionate impact continues. And that's because there's more than one disparate impact out of COVID. And they play out in a number of ways beyond physical health: housing and food insecurity, employment, and in the case of CPS students, unequal educational services than that offered to students in other school districts and private schools. So I just urge you, please let health officials focus on health issues and have CPS focus on education. And over the past 10 years, CPS has been on a strong path to grow the district in so many positive ways. However, over the course of 6 months, the community buy-in and trust has eroded for
Our next speaker is Susan, followed by Ashley T.
Hi. I want to say, first of all, thank you for putting up with all of us parents calling in, because I know we're passionate, we love our kids, and you're giving us an opportunity to speak. I have two daughters who are in high school at SCPA. We absolutely love our school and the CPS district. My son started out at Walnut Hills this year, but as a shy 7th grader new to the district, virtual learning did not work well for him, and we had to pull him out. He's been going to school 5 days a week since then, while my daughters are stuck at home. CPS teachers, your students need you. You are essential. You cannot be replaced with an app. You can't be replaced by outsourced educational videos dragged and dropped into Schoology. Your students are suffering. I know you're trying, but they're not getting the same quality education as they did last year, and they are certainly not getting the same quality as their peers around the country. Last year, my daughters had 225 minutes of math instruction a week. This year, 90, if they're lucky. How is my sophomore going to fare on the ACT next year against the millions of students across the country who have been getting much more instructional time? Time in person with their teachers, interacting in real time. Teachers, I know that some of you are scared. I'm sorry, and I get it. I'm married to a healthcare professional, and I teach as well. I'm really not asking you to risk your life to teach my children. I'm asking you to partner with me and all of us parents to ensure that our children in our district are getting a competitive and quality education in a safe environment. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel. Indiana has been back 5 days a week for an entire quarter. Most area schools have been back in person one way or another since September. Sports go on, band practice goes on. My son has been playing soccer. My daughters have been dancing at their private studio since July. Masks work. Distance works. 3 feet of distance works. And transmission is just not happening in the classroom. It's not happening in rehearsals, and it's not happening on the field. Superintendent Mitchell, I know you graduated from SCPA, and my daughter is a senior. And I love your recommendation tonight, but I just want you to imagine for a minute.
Our next speaker is Ashley T. And Carrie, you're after her, Kari.
Hi, my name is Ashley Tolokonski. And if you guys cannot hear me, somebody text me about that. Okay. I think I got rid of the feedback. So one of my friends text me if you can't hear me. My name is Ashley Tolokonski. I am a parent of 2 kids at Hyde Park School, 6th grade and 4th grade. I just want to say that our schools need to be open. I was very disappointed last week, shocked and disappointed about the ruling on the red, but I'm thrilled tonight to hear that you guys are actually looking at that with, I guess, a grain of salt, and you're going to use data to see what that stuff really means. So I urge you to let us go back to school very soon, next week if we can, but we'll wait an extra week if we must. And I would like to see us moving towards a 5-day in person as soon as possible. For those people that are upset about being forced to go in person, they're not. In fact, they've had the option all along. In fact, nobody's been in person, and they've had the option, either CDA, or it sounds like you have a variety of things, including packets and all kinds of things. So let's do this. Let's send the kids back to school, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. You're up. And Katie Timmons, you're after Carrie.
Hi, thank you guys for your time this evening. Have a remote option from the homeschool, not the CDA, like Lana does. I understand.
Carrie, you with us?
Yes, can you hear? Can you hear? Oh. Hello? You hear? You hear? Hello? Hello? Can you hear us? Hello? Hello?
Try again. Katie, you there?
Yes. Hello? Hi, thank you guys for your time this evening. I am an 8th grader at Walnut Hills, and I think all schools should have a remote option from the homeschool, not the CDA, like Walnut is. I understand Walnut is remote because of its population size, which is another issue you guys need to address. I think you aren't considering your. My dad teaches for your district and is high risk category. Why didn't you look into the outdoor learning classroom seriously back in the summer? So are you guys gonna do it in the fall? I mean, in the spring, as a way to do it in person? It is founded that air circulation is huge in the spread of the virus.
I'm gonna give you a try again. Ready?
Hi, thank you. I am excited and optimistic about your plan to send the kids back to school. I have a 7 and 9-year-old, and the remote is not working for us. And, you know, I've sat through this whole meeting, and after listening to the Evanston Blue Ribbon presentation, one thing that they stressed was early literacy. And our youngest students are at the most risk of falling behind. You cannot learn to read and write through an app. They need to be there. They need to have the teachers, you know, who are trying their best, and I applaud them. But I appreciate the choice that you've given us, and I'm really looking forward to having the kids back. Thank you.
Next up is Matt Sample, and then Lauren Sample right after Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to the board for your best efforts in navigating the COVID-19 crisis in our city to the best of your ability. When you were hired or elected, you were left knowing you'd be asked to manage through a global pandemic and make decisions most likely outside your comfort zone and skill sets. For that, I empathize. However, COVID-19 is not going away, and we as a community need to go about this differently. Over the past few weeks, you have been indecisive when the community has called for decisiveness. Most recently, on the announcement to pause, you have been rashly decisive when you needed to be measured, collaborative, and calculated. When you look at the data that turned Hamilton County red, we met 4 of the primary indicators, but those indicators were percentage-based. Hospitalizations went from 1.1 a day to 2.7. That's 150% change, and it seems extreme. But when you compare that percentage to a county going from 300 to 750, those 2 metrics aren't even comparable. Arguably, the 3 most indicative metrics of COVID spread and severity were still not met for Hamilton County. And to add to the city data, it even lowers that even more at a rate of 2.5%. Now, again, I'm not saying we ignore the data. I'm saying we take measured approaches to review the data and lean on opinions of those that matter. Due to this pandemic, I myself personally have been thrust into working with Health and Human Services on almost a daily basis. The last 6 months, I've been managing, along with the U.S. government, the exclusive distribution of the only known COVID-19 therapy that works. All of our decisions as a joint public-private partnership have been driven by data, interpreted by social statistics, health experts, interactions with state departments, and leadership from a seasoned epidemiologist. COVID-19 is not going away, but things are different than they were in March. We are safer. There are new treatments coming out soon, and we have protocols that were developed to allow us to go back to school safely. What we don't have is the right people in the room making the decisions, a collaborative structure for dialogue, and if nothing changes, we will continue to be ill-equipped for my kids' future. And quite frankly, you might as well write off those 3,000 unaccounted kids for a failure of the system. I do, however, have a recommendation. I suggest forming a COVID-19 team to manage the immediate partial return of in-person learning, along as hopefully soon 5-day-a-week learning, and a team.
Thank you, Matt. Lauren Sample, you're up, and Christopher Muldrow is next.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak. I am very glad to hear that we are at least going back to, partially returning to in-person learning, but I don't get, a very good feeling that we have any sort of concrete strategy to get us back to 5 days, or to plan for, what happens when we go red again, if we do. There's just a lot of, well, if this happens, if enough kids do attend, or if enough kids don't attend, we might do this. So this is not acceptable. We need a better plan. We need a better team of people who can have concrete decisions. I also am unclear, and I don't know if it's been stated, what the criteria is to get to yellow, because it seems that we may never get to 5-day learning. And then thirdly, with Walnut Hills, it is totally unacceptable that one of the top schools in our state will probably never return to in-person learning with the rules that CPS has put in place for when our students can return to school. Other districts are moving towards 5 days, and I really want to see CPS with a plan to move to 5 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Our next speaker is Christopher Muldrow, and Brandon, you're after Christopher. Go ahead, Christopher.
All right, I'm gonna get it moving. The Evanston Academy is a great school, and they offer the high quality instruction, and they push the pace. And when I talk about pushing the pace, we're looking at online. We've been doing 25 hours a week. We get 25 hours of instruction a week. They get about an hour break every day. Well, we get 25 hours of instruction a week. But that's not what I would like to talk about today. What I would like to talk about is Western Hills and what's going on at Western Hills. Western Hills gets no instruction on Monday. They just log in for numbers. They get no instruction from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day. They get no instruction from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. every day. Western Hill only gets instruction from Tuesday through Friday from 9 to 12. They get 12 hours of instruction a week. That's a big disparity for me. I feel sorry for those students over there. I wish somebody would look into it and ask, why is that being allowed to happen? I pulled up the Walnut Hills schedule, and Walnut Hills is getting 27 and a half hours of instruction a week. When you look at Walnut Hills, they cover 12 hours of instruction in 2 days. They're covering what Western Hill is getting in 1 week in 2 days. Can somebody please look into that? Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Brandon, you're next, and Sean, you're after Brandon. Go ahead, Brandon.
I'm here tonight to counter the astroturfing that is being attempted at this meeting by a small but loud contingent of wealthy white parents. Their explicitly stated goal is to take up the whole meeting with their overly privileged voices, and I cannot let that stand. When they speak, you will hear poorly conceived arguments based in denial and or ignorance of what our district has accomplished this school year. You will hear disingenuous comparisons that ignore that our closest comps are not considering a full return at this point. Yes, that includes Columbus. You will hear every kind of abuse of statistics. You will hear people trying to establish expertise without stating the nature of that expertise. You will hear references to 3,000 missing students with the Pollyanna-ish assumption that they will all immediately appear again if we just go back to in-person. Most concerning to me, though, is that you will hear faux concern on behalf of the majority of the students in this district. This is because you will not hear from them that the single best known fact about this virus is that it affects Black and brown communities worst by every single measure. The fact is, an unsafe return will affect these parents, their families, and their students least. They can hide it in the language of academics and concerned theater all they want. But the fact is that they are demanding to send the most vulnerable into unsafe conditions because to do otherwise is inconvenient for them. So instead of letting the loudest voices be heard, let's remember the facts here. We now fail to meet 2 of the criteria the district set for returning to school in person. If we're truly following CDC guidelines, as keeps getting said over and over, then just one of those failures is enough. So you have a choice. You can stick with the hard truth that we are not ready to open and commit to a truly safe opening when we fully and completely meet all the criteria and you yourself meet fully in public. Or you can once again change the rules because you don't like the data and bend to the will of the most privileged, who have made it clear that, like selfish and spoiled children, they will take their toys and go somewhere else if they can't get what they want. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Brandon. Sean, you're up, and David Brenner, you're next. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. First, kudos to Walnut Principal Chambers and Assistant Superintendent Murphy for leading the Walnut Town Hall last week. It was good and frankly refreshing to see the district and Walnut side by side presenting information to the community. Please consider John and his team and empower them to do what's right for the Walnut community moving forward. And I would just ask that that begins as quickly as possible, starting with the 11th graders being allowed to take the PSAT that was addressed last week during the town hall, but no concrete plans have come out. So to allow the 11th graders to take the PSAT would be a good first step, and then empower John and his team to make the decisions that are best for that community. Thank you.
Go ahead, David Brenner, you're up next, and then after you is initials A and D.
Superintendent Mitchell, thank you for following the guidelines you set in place before the school year started. But changing the criteria because we don't like the answers is wrong. We still need commitment to having 100% remote option for more than 25% of our students and families. If not, you're turning this into the Hunger Games. May the odds be ever in your favor, I guess. In addition, you are further upending students' lives by shuffling their teachers. I have heard from more than one parent that without a 100% remote option, they plan on calling in sick for their students on any day they are expected to be in school. This is what families are resorting to without some real option provided by the district. As a single parent of 4 students in 2 different schools, working full-time without the luxury of paid help, I understand the desire to get our students back in school. It's hard to keep my students focused and do my work to maintain a roof over our heads and food on the table. Unfortunately, the current data does not support going back as an option for our family. The situation in the White House demonstrates the serious issues with going against safety and distancing requirements. Questioning the data and established guideline because we want a different answer is confusing, counterproductive, and dangerous. This is a true life and death issue. We have families that need a real 100% remote option. We aren't just risking our students and teachers, but our entire community. For the rest of their lives, do we want our children to carry the guilt of bringing home this virus, resulting in illness, long-term complications, and even the death of a friend, neighbor, or family member? How many grandparents' lives do you want on your conscience? Thank you.
Thank you, David. And AD, you're next. Kim Tobin, you're after that. Go ahead.
I'm here today to advocate for the non-certificated staff. While I understand that the plan now is for us to return to in-person learning, I would like to draw attention to the fact that non-certificated staff never had the option to work from home. A lot of our paraprofessionals, assistant school community coordinators, and very other important staff members within Cincinnati Public who have been there for many years were never given the option to keep their family safe and to do what they felt was right for their health. Only certificated teachers were given the option to work from home. Our paraprofessionals have not been equipped with iPads or laptops to assist their teachers and assist the students with what they may need. I understand what the board's decision may be as of right now, but I'm just asking that in the future, you give the non-certificated staff a voice as well, as they are the key to what our students need. They are the ones who are most with our students and one-on-one with our students, and I'm hoping that you can respect them and their health and their families just as much as the certificated staff. Thank you.
And Tom Rowe, you're after Kim. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you. We've heard a lot tonight from, let's be frank, white privileged parents about their concerns about leaving behind our Black and brown children. However, they don't seem to be concerned with the health and welfare of those same children. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, I've polled every single one of my students and asked them how they feel about returning to a building that they have deemed unsafe. I can tell you that 80% of my students are not prepared to come back into the building despite their desire to do so. They don't believe that they'll be safe, and they understand that the consequences for them and their classmates are much more dire than any of the suburban districts that surround us. We can look at the suburban districts all we want and see how quote unquote well they're doing at actually hiding their numbers because we know they're not real. But regardless, we also know that this disease impacts our students and our demographic far differently than it impacts those suburban schools. CPS has the opportunity right now to decide to remain virtual. We have the opportunity right now to ensure that our district is the only district in the Cincinnati area that does not lose a single child or staff member due to COVID. By making the decision to switch us Black to blended when we have not met any of the criteria set at the beginning of the school year, you are making the decision to potentially kill possibly hundreds of our children and our staff. This is an unacceptable decision that we should absolutely not be making. We as teachers are doing everything in our power to make virtual learning work. I spend literally from 8 a.m. to almost 5 p.m. on the computer with my students. From 5 p.m. on, I am reachable via text message, Schoology, and email. I literally am in contact with my students from the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I go to bed to ensure that they are getting the.
Thank you, Kim. You're out of time. Tom Rowe, you're up, and Adair Highstand, you're next. Go ahead.
Good evening, members of the board and the administration. Thank you for your leadership in what is honestly a very difficult time. I'm here this evening to ask for your immediate move to in-person learning 5 days a week and appreciate the near-term decision to at least go to a blended program as we evaluate data and actions going forward. I'd also ask that we look at being flexible not only with the red stratum, but also the orange, where we might be able to look at a blended or in-person learning option at the orange level in Hamilton County and not just have the flexibility at the red. Kids are being left behind. I ask for in-person learning now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adair, you're up next, and Dyson, you're after Adair. Go ahead, Adair.
Hello. I would like to thank you all for your hard work. I understand that considering the needs of so many groups is a Herculean task. Blended learning to us looks like a lot less instruction. I am urging you to look at how we can maintain the educational integrity of our classrooms while keeping our urban core safe. I know that children in multi-generational households have the most to lose in this situation. I understand that our district has many overcrowded buildings where social distancing constraints can barely be met. I'm not sure what the solution to that is during a pandemic, but I urge you to consider that no one is probably living their best life right now. And I get that our children are having a hard time doing school from home, but we're all doing the best we can, and I know you are as well. Thank you.
Dyson, you're up. Marion Griffin, you're next. Go ahead, Dyson.
Hello, my name is Dyson Brenner. I am in 6th grade at Sands Montessori. I don't think that we should go back to school until COVID cases die down because I don't want to be responsible for more COVID cases and deaths. Thank you.
Marianne Griffin, and then somebody with initials SH. Go ahead, Marianne.
No, because I don't want to be responsible for more for the kids to be there.
Did I do okay, Mom?
That's not cool.
Marianne Griffin,
Not nice.
and then somebody.
Mute.
Hi, I want to send out a huge thank you, first of all, to all the Walnut teachers for their efforts and support. They've been nothing short of amazing. On September 15th, WVXU reported that the city wants to partner with CPS to help facilitate in-person learning. The city commented that they have not heard a response to that request. As we just heard, it will take about $10 million to adequately equip our schools for streaming learning. If our city and business community are willing to partner with us to find the $10 million to upgrade our infrastructure, are you willing to work with them? There are at least half of the students at most CPS schools that want desperately to go back to in-person learning. There are depressed, anxious, and academically failing kids that are yearning for that in-person experience, not to mention dual working families that can't provide oversight necessary to support kids at home. Will you partner with our city to wire our schools to effectively facilitate remote and in-person learning at all of our schools? Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you. SH, you're up. And Luke Blocher, you're next.
Who's up? Who's up? Me?
Are you up? No, it's
Oh,
your,
that's
your
fine.
Marianne.
I tried to wait 30 seconds. Listen to Marianne, it's late. Unmute.
Thank you. SH, you're up.
Is that us?
Yes, that's you.
I think that's us.
That's you.
Who's up? Who's up?
Me?
It's not us.
No, it's your Marianne.
Hi, this is Chris Hendrickson, and I'm a parent at Hyde Park School. Would like to first thank the superintendent and her team for all the work you've done to bring students back to school and to be prepared. I would also like to give a shout out to Mrs. Hebert and Mr. Messerly, who have done a fantastic job of taking their in-classroom learning to offline learning and online learning, and we appreciate all that you've done for that. I'd love to echo earlier comments about statistics in which we look at hospitalization increases and think about a point at which the increase in percentages may not be enough to think about closing schools, but should be something that you could talk to the Ohio Department of Health and CDC about whether or not that is a substantial enough area in which to turn to red from orange. On the second point, if more than 50% of students, I'd love to ask the board, if more than 50% of parents or students decide that they would like to do streaming learning, I would like the board to consider having other students in person 4 days a week, given that the classrooms will be half as full as they would have been if all students had gone back in a blended learning model. Thank you to the board and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Luke, you're up, and somebody with the initials AC is next. Go ahead, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, as always, for your service on the board and to the staff and administration for all their work. My name is Luke Blocher. I'm a parent at the Clifton Area Neighborhood School. I want to first thank the teachers there who've done incredible work, really, truly, and the principal and the entire staff in the model we've been in. I fully support the plan that's been promoted and recommended by the administration. I think it's very thoughtful. I particularly appreciate and endorse the idea that it's flexible to empower both the administration and individual schools to figure out ways that work for them to return safely. I want to encourage everybody in the administration and the board to continue to engage the data as you have. The analysis of what orange really meant and what red really meant in the county, I think, was very important. I want to encourage you all to continue to do that, encourage all of us to continue to do that so that we can assess what those flips and what those switches and adjustments really mean for schools and for teaching. Finally, there's been a lot of passion from parents throughout this debate tonight and in many other settings, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's part of what has made CPS special, and it's part of been the CPS growth story in recent years, has been that parent passion and parent engagement. So I want to encourage everybody to continue to engage with that passion and to not take it for granted. I think it comes from a fact, from believing there's schools and administrations that listen to you, that want to engage with you, and that want to continue to grow CPS. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Luke. AC, you're up. Lisa Wyatt, you're next.
First of all, I would like to say that at 9:04, I received an email stating that we are returning to school next week. I was under the impression that the board has not yet voted, so I'm a little confused by that. Originally, I wanted to speak tonight to say thank you for delaying the return to school because I have been on edge with anxiety just about every day since hearing we would return. Since this meeting began, my anxiety has returned. I love teaching and would love to teach in person, but as you all know, we are in the midst of a pandemic. If one student or teacher gets COVID in a class, the entire class could get it because they will be maskless during multiple meal times throughout the day. Being maskless for any period of time in a classroom with a highly contagious airborne disease is worrisome to say the very least. Both Kentucky and Indiana have had their highest 7-day average than at any other point in the pandemic, and Ohio's 7-day average is at its highest since September 3rd. Our state, along with many other states in the country, are increasing in numbers, and we are heading into colder weather and flu season. The forecast for our country is that another 150,000 Americans will die between now and January 1st. If we are only going to stay open for a month or so in person, is it honestly worth risking the lives of our students and families? Teaching children routines takes a long time. I'm not sure you are considering how much learning we will lose by switching back and forth. A study from the APM Research Lab stated that as a result of COVID, one in a little over 1,000 Black Americans has died. The U.S. age-adjusted COVID-19 mortality rate for Black Americans is 3.4 times as high as their white counterparts. Please choose science, health, and safety over convenience. I am a teacher, not a frontline worker. I understand that I am replaceable as a teacher to you, but I and my colleagues are not replaceable to our families. People can be talking about choice. They keep talking about choice, but what choice do teachers have? Please stop changing the goalpost on the.
Thank you. Lisa Wyatt, you're up, and Ryan Wenstrup Moore, you're next. Go ahead, Lisa. Lisa, are you with us? Ryan Wenstrup Moore.
Hi, thank you. First, I just want to say thank you for sitting through everybody talking. There's a lot of us, and I appreciate it. A special shout out to Board Member Messer, who I contacted today, and he got back to me, and I really appreciate that as a parent. I just want to say off the top, I support the plan presented by the superintendent to get our kids back to school in the 1-2-2 model, and I hope that you would move forward with that plan and take that recommendation. I also just want to use the time to give a huge shout out to Kilgore and all of our teachers and staff at Kilgore who are doing everything they can for our children to make remote working work, even remote school work, even when it doesn't work. Which, as someone who we have 2 full-time working parents, and we're lucky enough to be in the home, and it's still an absolute struggle. So we're very excited about and support the plan to go back. But I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Klosterman, Mrs. Bitcher, Mrs. Kidd, Mrs. Clark, and Mrs. Kowalski. They're doing everything for our kids. Thank you so much. The plan sounds great, and I'm done.
Sarah, you're up next.
All right. Hello. Again, I echo and thank you guys for all of your support and time you've put into this. I'm a CPS parent of 3 children in 2 schools. I support in-person learning, and I look forward to having my children back 5 days a week. I also support families having a choice for what's best for them. I'm hopeful to hear the recommendation to start blended learning next week for my youngest 2. I'm disappointed that my oldest, who is a 7th grader at Walnut, is still stuck at home in a less than ideal learning situation. I urge you to think outside of the box and find a reasonable solution for Walnut Hills students. The ABCD model was not it, and many parents chose remote over that lack of instruction option. I'm also an educator in Lakota schools, where we've been back in for almost 2 months. All students 5 days a week. I understand the difference between the school districts, but the students have been in classrooms with over 20 kids, 3 feet apart, with less than 15 cases reported district-wide in that whole time. Lakota's a student population around 16,700, similar data to Mason, as the parent shared earlier. I urge you to continue to explore the data and be ready to make changes, hopefully to 5 days in person as the data supports it. We deserve a choice. The data supports in-person learning, and families are willing to make changes to find that. The families in CPS deserve an in-person option, including Walnut Hills. Thank you for your considerations.
Lisa Wyatt, are you out there? Ben? Lisa? Gone. Okay, inviting a couple more people in.
Hey there. I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you all very, very much for everything you've done. Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Also, I am representing the kids at SCPA. They're unique as far as their main focus for going there, which is the arts, where other schools, it's the sports. A lot of the kiddos would like to be practicing in person. I am representing the kids at SCPA. They're unique as far as their main focus for going there, which is the arts, where other schools it's for sports. A lot of the kiddos would like to be practicing in person. I'm sorry, my connection is pretty bad.
Okay, Eileen Pike, you're up, and Leslie Mooney, you're after Eileen. Go ahead, Eileen.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to first say again, thank you guys so much. Listening to this tonight, woo! I do not admire your job, but I do appreciate you guys so much. I just want to say one thing, the word choice. You guys are giving us a choice. If you have kids at school and you don't want them to go back, you don't feel comfortable, then keep them home. I feel comfortable sending my boys back to blended learning. And if anyone knows me, I'm pretty crazy as a mom. I wouldn't send my children back, my boys back, if I didn't feel comfortable. That's just it. End of story. My son's teachers are on a struggle bus. I mean, they've got 25 9-year-olds in this classroom. It takes 20 minutes to get through all of their chatter and messaging and everything else. I'm sitting on the room in the bed. I'm listening to this. They're making faces. They're playing with Legos. The teachers are frustrated. they're getting upset. It's not the most amazing third grade that I want to have for my son. The teachers are frustrated, and it's coming across. I'd honestly like to also know how many parents that are and teachers that are objecting to this are out and about doing normal activities. You can go here, you can go there, but you can't put on a mask and be in school. You feel your life is in danger. I know that this is a situation. I know there are things that need to be done, but I think you guys are doing it, and I feel comfortable fully supporting the board's decision to go back to the blended learning. Thank you guys again so much for all you do. Appreciate it.
Sorry. Our next presenter is Leslie Mooney, and then Aubrey Backscheider.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the superintendent and the board for particularly for recognizing the need to assess the data coming out of the red, yellow, orange sheets more carefully and to parse it specifically to look at what those percentages mean, particularly for our students coming back to school. I think that makes a lot of sense. I would suggest, as I believe I've heard someone else tonight say, that also looking at the orange yellow percentages and seeing if orange would also warrant potentially, in consultation of course with health professionals at the local level, a move to in-person as well as potentially blended. It's interesting that it kind of struck me as the superintendent was speaking how similar that can be to the state education report cards that so many of you have decried for good reason. And we all look to say, well, you know, those percentages may not accurately reflect what's actually happening within the individual school buildings. I think it can be a similar metaphor to what's going on with the health data in some ways. I'd also really urge you to look at Board Member Lindy's point about sort of a backup plan, a plan B, not just one step ahead, but 2 or 3 steps ahead, depending on what things don't happen. I'm sure that you are doing that, but I know also how much is coming at you so quickly. So I would really support taking the time to really look at if plan A fails, what's the backup plan, and then the backup plan, because it is very difficult on families like mine, and of course the 36,000 kids that are enrolled in the district to try to move at such a rapid pace back and forth as this data comes out. So, and you know, really support a move towards 5 days, not only from the examples that we've heard tonight, that other schools that are doing it that are having success, but also because of course all of us are looking at pods. We're in a pod situation. We have a university.
Ran out of time. Aubrey, you're up, and Monique Bush, you're next.
Hi, I'd like to thank the board for allowing me the chance to speak, and for each of you for volunteering for your position at CPS. I really appreciate you guys being public servants and all the parents that have taken the time to speak this evening. And I'd like to fully support the superintendent's plan to go back to a 2-2-1 blended model. I think it's the right move for our kids and for the community. After listening to a lot of parents talk on both sides and listening to concerns, I think that the adults are honestly more scared about all of this than the kids, to be honest. A lot of them are excited at the prospect of going back, which will mean, you know, maybe starting to wear a mask at home just to get them used to it. I did find it alarming that some parents said their kids are receiving half as much instructional time as other schools. I think the board should take that seriously because every child deserves the same amount of instruction time. This is just it breaks my heart to think that some of these kids are not having their educational needs met, and I know it's a really challenging time. But I do want to reiterate that data shows that our survival rates are going up and that case rates are going down. Okay, so this is not fictitious data. This is from Johns Hopkins University, taken right out of The Economist. I know parents are scared that people will get sick, and they will, to be honest. It's going to happen. But I think that we've reached a point where it's safe to return, and that our kids deserve that, and our teachers. And I fully support it. And I'd like to, again, thank you guys for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Monique, you're up, and Kathy Hirsch, you're after Monique. Go ahead, Monique.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to get on here and talk about the fact that we've had so many changes as a teacher. I hear a lot of people mentioning Walnut Hills, but Walnut Hills is one of many schools, and it's not just the only important school. Teachers have had to, in the past week, get their class ready and then move their class out. And we're all thinking about, what is convenient for just parents, but we need to think about parents, students, teachers, everybody that is involved. Teachers do not want our special ed kids to miss out, and all of our kids that are struggling and stuff, but we still need to do what's right because we are in a pandemic. This has never been something that we've had to face before, and people are concerned about minute things. We need to be concerned about safety. We're asking teachers to social distance kindergarten, preschool kids, and do things that are not realistic in reality in real life when you have adults and teachers sometimes who struggle to social distance and wear their mask. And I think that we need to do always what's right at the end of the day because that's the most important, and we need to come on and get the stuff done right. It's too much back and forth, and now we're going to go back. So we moved all our stuff out Friday just to move stuff back in. This is too much yo-yoing, and people are changing their schedules too much to do too much accommodation. I think we need to stay remote, get through at least to the end of this year, and then go back to the drawing board. And parents will be all right. Walnut Hill School will be all right because you all are not the only school in the district. There's other schools that are holding it down, and so they're not the most important school. We need to do right by the kids. It's too much schedule changes, and it's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the parents. And we need to come with it and stand strong in whatever choice we make and not keep backing up. And Walnut Hills people will be just fine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kathy Hirsch, you're up, and Kristen with a K is next.
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Mitchell. As a paraprofessional with more than 26 years of service to our city's school children, I have worked in numerous school and classroom settings and experienced the many highs and lows of working in Cincinnati Public Schools. The pandemic situation is one of our lows. We need to realize that while we keep hearing from the most privileged part of our school community that our Black and brown students and families are at most risk for complications due to COVID. We just moved into red. A quick turnabout and going back into a blended learning situation within 7 days seems irresponsible and ridiculous. Furthermore, the second-class treatment of paraprofessionals and civil service personnel who have the capability to do their work remotely, like the teachers have been given a choice, just completely undermines my faith in Cincinnati Public Schools as an employer. I feel disheartened and demoralized, and as someone who has worked for nearly 3 decades for the school district and have health concerns that put me at risk, I want the same consideration for myself and my fellow paraprofessionals as they're given to certificated personnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, you're up, and Tricia Barlow, you're next.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm a CPS parent. I just want to start by saying that I fully support Superintendent Mitchell's proposal to to start the blended learning model. I think it's really important for our kids to be in person, in school learning. I'm not going to say one decision is better than another, but I do feel that it's really important for us as parents to have choices. And as members of the board and administration, I feel like you guys have gone above and beyond to provide choices on how families and students can continue with the remote learning option, but I do not feel that any choices have been given to those of us that do feel the need for our children to be learning in person. I think that CPS students are falling behind others in the county, in the state, in the country that are back in person learning at no fault to the teachers and staff. I just don't feel that the remote learning is doing as much as in-person learning can be doing. I just think it's really important for our kids to be in person. Thank you guys all on the board for all the time and effort you put into this. I know it's an impossible decision, but I strongly urge you all to support Superintendent Mitchell and vote to pass the option to go to in-person or blended learning. Goodness, I can't speak because I hate public speaking, but I was tired of sitting back and not doing anything, which is why I'm here tonight. So please, please consider voting yes and supporting Superintendent Mitchell's recommendation. Thank you.
You're up next, and somebody with the initial C is after Tricia. Go ahead, Tricia.
Hi, I'd like to just say that I am in full support of the district moving to 5 days as soon as possible. I feel like teachers are an essential profession, one of the most essential you can possibly get, and schools are one of the most essential institutions that exist in this world. The teaching of our kids is the most important thing I think that we can do for our kids and for this country in general. And I think that we've had the advantage of watching all the other districts, both in Cincinnati and in the state of Ohio, in districts that are comparable to ours. And we have seen that their numbers of COVID cases have not significantly risen because the kids are going to school. And I think that it's really important that these kids get back to school. And I do think, referring to something earlier, the odds are in our favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Letter C, you're up next. And Julian Whitaker, you're after her, or him, sorry.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a teacher in CPS with 30 years of experience. While my opinion may not be yours, I hope you listen with an open mind. Tonight, I'm imploring the superintendent and the school board to bring the kids back 5 days a week. Please consider the following. By keeping our students in a virtual learning environment, we are hurting them in several ways. First, educationally, the virtual education is not a substitute for face-to-face education. There are many problems. We've seen them tonight. The lag time, not hearing. It is not a good situation. Please consider that the other school districts are in 5 days a week, 100% students. We cannot offer the same level of education as the other districts right now. We can't compete with the other districts right now. We can't have our students compete. They are falling behind. We are widening the gap, the term where people who are not at proficient, we are widening it. We always try to close that gap, but staying virtual, it's making it worse. Not only are students, parents, and teachers frustrated, we have 3,000 students we can't get a hold of. These kids are the ones who need us most. Please give them a chance to catch up and bring them back to school. We are hurting kids psychologically. During a Governor DeWine update, the doctor said, and I'm paraphrasing, keeping students out of the classroom causes more harm than being back. He was citing a study from American Academy of Pediatrics. Also,
You ran out of time. Jillian Whitaker, you're next, and Mandy Carroll, you're after Jillian. Go ahead, Jillian.
Hi. So I'm just going to say that this feels a lot like we're moving the metrics yet again. I mean, if our government can't keep themselves safe with all their money and all their equipment and all of their doctors and all of their special medicine, how do you expect to keep our kids safe? I've listened to all of these white parents come into this meeting with their big ass houses in the background, excuse my language, and their kids go to Sands, which is 15% African American, or Hyde Park, which is 18% African American, or Kilgore, which is 20% African American, and they pretend to care about the 3,000 kids that haven't shown up to class. Why don't we hear from the parents at Woodward that has a 95% African American rate, or Dater, where my kid goes, which is 40%, or West High, which is 80%. Please do not use these 3,000 kids for your own privileged agenda because it is sickening, okay, first of all. Second of all, cases are up by 23% in Ohio this week. I just don't understand how, we canceled everything last week and now cases continue to rise and we want to just throw everything back. And people keep saying that the parents who want to keep their kids remote have a choice. But as everyone keeps saying tonight, we have a choice if things work out, if there's enough people who want to send their kids. If it's perfectly even across the district, then maybe I'll get to keep my kid home and keep them safe. And that's not acceptable either. Please don't let this 300 group people on Facebook who decided to bomb the meeting when they haven't come to any other one speak for all of your students, because I assure you they're not the majority here. Finally, I keep saying this, I'll say it again. I'm really curious as to whether the police will still be in schools and if they will be masked in order to keep our students safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy Carroll, you're up, and Nana, you're after Mandy. Go ahead, Mandy.
Yeah, hi. All right, so I hope you can hear me. I just want to say what Jillian said is absolutely correct. I am not a person of color. My kids have predominantly been in schools my kids are in schools that are predominantly people of color where they're the minority. And that is one of their biggest concerns, that their Black and brown friends will not be okay. And, they are very concerned for their friends that are Black and brown. Absolutely. Your decision to start a blended model while we are in the red, and even before that, is ludicrous. Ludicrous that you would decide to go back to this. I mean, I can't wrap my head around it. I don't know what you're thinking. The only person that has a brain in this entire, whatever you want to call yourselves, a board, a circus, is Mike Morosky. He's the only one thinking straight right now. It's garbage, and I don't understand. I do feel for the teachers, and I do know for a fact that they got the notice that you guys were going to a blended model after the parents did. So what do you have to say for yourselves there? It's bogus. And you need to start thinking, about what the plan actually is. Also, what's the deal with the Metro buses? I continually ask you guys, what's going on with the Metro buses? Are they going to be deep cleaned? Or are my kids going to go on a Metro bus to school? And then it's going to recirculate to the general public and then they're going to get picked up again? You have to let me know what's going on with that. You have to let people know what's going on with that. You really need to evaluate what your priorities are instead of succumbing to the people that come on here and want to railroad you to get the kids back in school.
Nana, you're up, and Hannah Scheich, you're after her. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nana Jones. I'm the mother of a fifth grader. My eighth grader attends Walnut Hills High School. I want to reiterate an email I sent a couple of weeks ago and support some of the first few callers that came on. Of course, first, thank you. You guys don't get enough gratitude and appreciation for what you've done thus far because nobody slated your job to be occurring during a pandemic. And so as you're making decisions to try to reconcile multiple different expectations, experiences, and expertise into one solitary decision, I do ask that you use data to do so. I'm not only a mother, but I'm also a physician, so I come from a double perspective. I heard Principal Stacy Hill Simmons mention so brilliantly as her team used data to drive their interventions, which led to their success. I heard Superintendent Mitchell also state we need to use data to drive our decision. And I've heard a lot of data about Hamilton County and COVID data, but when you're looking at data, you need to look at it from the ground up. So we need to look at the data in such a way that we're looking at the children. And let's talk about how we redefine safety. I know a lot of people are upset and thinking that our kids are going to be unsafe at school. However, our public school system doesn't just provide education. It provides food, clothing, shelter, transportation, utilities, healthcare, emotional and psychological support. I heard a parent and speaker of our kids say the kids are maybe at higher risk at transition of schools, but I disagree, but I would like to see that data. If the school is screening, social distancing, wearing masks, sanitizing, they are doing much more than the kids that I see at Walmart, Walgreens, Target, Kroger, Urban Air, Chuck E. Cheese, or filling up the parks at birthday parties and celebrations. For the kids that don't have the resources to go out, they're outside playing close contact with one another. So I believe that the kids are actually safer in school. But again, I'm data driven. I'm a physician. So I would like to see that information.
Thank you. You ran out of time. Hannah, you're next. And Perry Brenner, you're after Hannah.
Hi. I don't even know where to start. I realize I am white. I am not a parent who can just pull their child and take them to a different county, to a different school. My children are all high risk. Not one person has come up with an option for a high risk student except you're stuck going in person or you're stuck staying home the first 2 weeks while we might have an option for you after those 2 weeks. One of my kids is a preschooler. He's got no option except for 4 days and being exposed to both Group A and Group B in a Montessori classroom filled with other students as well. Being high risk, we have also been home since March. We have not been out anywhere. Like the person before me said, because people don't disinfect like Kroger, Target, Walmart, etc. We can't take that risk. We have to have an option. Education is important and our teachers are important, and I don't deny that. But we have to have options for everyone. Anyone who's been affected by this virus matters. Everyone who's going to be affected by this virus matters. And I hope we can find some option that will make everybody happy and hopefully help others as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Perry Brenner, you're up, and Angie, you're after Perry.
Hello, my name is Perry Brenner. I'm a 8th grader at Walnut Hills High School, and I don't think we should go back. People will die, people will get sick, and then people will pass that COVID on to their family members and friends. I don't want the guilt of passing COVID on to my family members, my peers, my teachers, my friends on my conscience because of the fact that we had to go back. And going off what some other presenters said, what's up with the metro situation? Not all people can afford to be driven to school back and forth. And also the high risk students. What's up with that? And I also heard that the decision had already been made before the vote and the public input, which tells me that you don't care about what the public has to say.
Thank you. Angie, you're up next, and Leah, you're after Angie.
Hi, my name is Angie Wilson. I have a 3rd grader at Sands and a 10th grader at Clark. I would just like to raise my support to staying in remote learning. We are a high-risk family, and we have been pretty much in lockdown since March. We're not one of those families that go anywhere because, mirroring what one of the other parents said, we can't take that risk. I do understand the families who do need an in-school option, and I feel like 5 days may work for them if a solution could be found, and if a remote option could be found for families like us, there might be a compromise that works for both. I would like to remind everybody that this is a temporary situation. What I'm hoping for with my family is to buy more time for a vaccine to come along, for the medical field to catch up with treatments for COVID. And then I would feel more comfortable putting my kids in a situation knowing they would have a better chance of treatment. So while opinions are very heated and parents are very passionate, I would just like to remind people that this is a temporary situation and it's a matter of finding a good temporary situation or solution that helps all families. And I know this is a very difficult thing for you guys to navigate. So I thank you for hearing all of our opinions and trying to make the best decisions. In the end, I do hope that the health of our staff and students will be protected. And to me, that is more important than a couple of month delay in education. Thank you.
Leah, you're up, and then Lisa, you're after Leah.
Hello, I have a 4th grader at a Cincinnati public school, and my word of the day is choice. I should have a choice if I choose to send my child back to school 5 days a week. I have a family member that her children has health issues, and she has chose to homeschool her children. And I think that CPS has to offer all their students the choice and their parents to either go back full-time or at least blended, or give them a very good remote option to keep their family safe and to keep their children home. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, you're up, and Melanie Dorsey, you're next.
Hi, my name is Lisa Vogt, and I have 2 children at Dater Montessori, and the first thing I want to do is say I've been so impressed by all of the teachers and all of their hard work. I've heard a lot of talk about data, and one of the things that I don't think anyone is talking about is the data that we really don't have. As recently as late August, the Journal of Pediatrics released the most comprehensive study of COVID-19 pediatric patients to date, and data shows children play a larger role in community spread than previously thought. And notably, I quote, "The team found that infected children in the asymptomatic or early infection phase had higher viral loads than hospitalized adults with severe COVID-19. And this is what we are going to be putting in rooms with our teachers, and anyone who has taught knows that this is not a controlled situation. That's mythological. Also, I would like to say that I am tired of hearing parents speak of how hard remote learning is. I'm sorry, it is hard. It's hard. This is hard. It's a pandemic, and I'm really tired of hearing the kids will fall behind, because they will, and they're going to fall behind the standards that we set for them. Safety is the most important. Knowing the members of our school community and the communities they are connected to will not suffer more, will not lose lives because of poor, rushed decisions that lack sufficient data is so important. Teachers know how to teach in any format. They're doing it now. Trust them. Give them some time and consistency, please. I'm asking that we stay remote and that we keep it safe. I've also heard people say teachers are essential, which means their lives are essential. They count. So I ask that you reconsider this decision and that you act like their lives are essential with the choice to stay remote. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Dorsey, you're up, and then our last speaker, Julie Sellers, will be after Melanie.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a CPS parent and I support our return to blended learning. Thank you, Superintendent Mitchell, for putting that forward and allowing our students to begin to get back into the school building starting next week. Under the current full-time remote and even the proposed blended plan, which does not support live streaming of classes, our CPS students are getting a fraction of the instructional time that their peers and other neighborhoods and other school districts throughout the state are receiving. Other districts have reasonable data-driven plans that prioritize in-person instruction. CPS does not appear to be prioritizing in-person instruction, and our students are suffering because of it. The social and emotional toll of staying fully remote is devastating. Our children are behind in their curricula and in some cases only receiving a few hours a week of live instruction. In other cases, students are not attending any remote learning and have no support or education options. We need a safe return to the classroom with blended learning as a step towards 5-day in-person learning. Blended learning must also include live streaming of classes to stay on par with state standards and grade level curricula. As Mr. Lindy stated, if we can't continue to teach children 5 days a week, we need another plan. The best place for students to learn is with their teachers, in person if possible, or on computers if they can't be in the classroom altogether. What breaks my heart the most is hearing my children and other children beg to be allowed back into their schools with their friends and their teachers. My husband is a healthcare professional who works in Bond Hill. He works with the people of color in the community that so many other parents have spoken for tonight and said are afraid to go back. But his patients and peers want to go back, and we have heard from them. I think the district needs to get more data and actually pool the entire district and the entire community.
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey. You ran out of time. Julie Sellers, you're up.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Go ahead, Julie. Julie, are you with us? Julie, we can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself. We still can't hear you. We might try to get her on. Julie, can you hear us? Shake your head. Can you hear us? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on, see if we can't figure out why she's not coming through.
We're going to move on. We typically don't comment after the hearing of the public, but I think that it's necessary for us to just make a brief comment. We really do appreciate all of the comments that have been expressed to this board tonight, and we recognize the divergent opinions and thoughts and the recommendations. This board has worked hard with the superintendent's recommendation to make sure that we provide the safest option for our students to come back into the classroom. This board passed, we actually voted on this 122 plan several meetings ago. So I want to be clear because a lot of the comments were directed at the plan itself and data. And I want to say that we've used data. We've definitely used data to drive these decisions, although it may not be the same data sources that some of our audience perhaps may use. But everybody here sitting on this board and in our district leadership want what's best for our students. And somebody said it very eloquently, we're in a pandemic. It is hard. We're doing our best to make it work. But we have to try to get moving so that our kids don't lose out ultimately in this. So just to clarify, this vote was made a couple of meetings ago. We are not required by law to do another vote. What we did tonight was to basically give the superintendent an okay to move forward on incorporating the plan that was already decided upon. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't hear the audience. The superintendent is taking copious notes to make sure that all the suggestions, recommendations, considerations are there, and I'm sure that the leadership team will look at that and give guidance to that as needed. So we do hear you. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your patience, and we thank you so much for all the support that you've given us. So having said that, we're going to move on with kudos. Does anyone have any kudos? Did we ever get Ms. Sellers back? No? Okay, let's do kudos quickly. Any kudos? Okay, thank you. Retirements, Ms. Bates.
Yes, we have 2 retirements from our civil service personnel. Angela Ewing, who was an assistant school community coordinator, and Gerald B. Powell, who was a paraprofessional. So we thank these professionals for their service to our children and wish them well in their retirement and hope they have lots of fun.
Thank you. We have 2 board matters issues for discussion, but in consultation with the board, my board colleagues who put it on the agenda, we agreed to defer those for a different time on our agenda. So we'll defer those 2. And then moving on to resolution, Ms. Bolton, can you introduce and recommend? You were going to introduce and we were going to take action to defer, right?
Yes, I'm prepared to defer or delay or yes. As a matter of fact, we had introduced and passed last meeting our shared vision with the CPP board. I'm very happy about that. And then we also introduced that same week on Wednesday the resolution regarding an agreement and understanding regarding unspent preschool expansion dollars, and having introduced that and then withdrawn it. I would suggest that tonight we continue to withdraw it and address it at a later time.
Okay, thank you. So there's no action needed on the resolution at this point?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All righty. Superintendent Mitchell, do you have a report?
The only report I have is the written superintendent recommendations.
Wonderful. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. I see Ms. Sellers is back on. Can we get her up? We're going to try. Go ahead, Ms. Sellers.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Sorry. Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yeah. Yes.
Sir Paul? President Jones?
Yes. Thank you. Are there any inquiries or updates?
I'm curious as to what's going on at the moment, but that's the only inquiry that I
We'll
have.
tell you about it later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Inquiries and updates. Mr. Morosky?
I do. Just a quick inquiry and one little update. A quick little inquiry is if a child is at CDA and they want to finish their quarter, can they do that and then re-enroll back in their school in the in-person? I assume the answer is yes. I just wanted to ask. So kid is in CDA. Can they stay to finish the quarter and then go back to their school?
I believe the answer, yes.
Okay. I just want to double check. And then the last is kind of an update or just for folks to know. I've gotten wind that, and I don't know if this is just a couple here and there, if it's across the board, but that the student issued laptops have trouble accessing our meetings. CPS issued laptops to students have trouble accessing our meetings, which could just, something, I don't know if it's because of the Blue Jeans Act or what it is. And again, it could just be a couple dozen or it could be everybody. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
Just to look
I don't
into,
know. Yeah.
Too many trucks.
Too many trucks on the
We're all
bridge.
like collect, yeah.
Okay. Let's stay controlled here. Okay. All righty. But question noted. So maybe
Just to look into, because if if our laptops, the kids disable them from plugging in, that would be strange.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Are there any assignments? Yes, Ms. Bolton.
Yeah, I perhaps if not a presentation, perhaps a report through the superintendent to the board regarding the transportation plans. Just an overall view of what's happening. I think we mentioned the yellow bus versus Metro as we're getting ready to roll on Monday. We don't necessarily need it now. If it's a memo or what have you, that would be helpful too as we prepare.
All right.
For that onslaught.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
As presented in some of the conversation tonight, Superintendent Mitchell, can we get a follow-up about the number of hours that students are getting across the schools as far as instructional time or what have you? If we could follow up with that, that'd be great.
Okay. Any other assignments? Okay. Having no other business before us, I declare the meeting adjourned. Good night.